All right, I am going to, it is now 7:05, and I'm going to open the Finance Committee for Tuesday, October 10th. I just want to remind everybody that we are being videotaped. Did you not get a?
I didn't.
Carol might have stole yours right there. We are being videotaped for future broadcast and on the cable and the town website. I think I am going to take things a little bit out of order, if that's okay with the group. So we have some guests. I'm going to do the reserve fund transfer first, the ambulance reporting software. Do you find gentlemen want to join us? Chief? Chief and his guest?
Chief, first off, I want to say I saw that new truck this weekend. My gosh, that thing is beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's already helped us out quite a bit, for sure. For sure.
Chief, you want to let us know?
Yep, absolutely. You all know who I am, but this is Lieutenant Tony Worcester. He supervises our ambulance ALS side of our ambulance service.
You mind? Let's just go around the table and introduce ourselves.
Okay.
Just 'cause, go ahead, you start, Howard.
Howard D'Amico, welcome.
Gene. Oh, my turn.
She knows Matt.
I thought we were across this way.
I'm really confused now. It's off to a great start on that road trip.
Go ahead, Carol, you're up next.
I think it's the chief's turn now.
Oh, the Chief's turn.
Hi, Pam.
Hi.
I'm Eric Chamberlain.
How you doing?
And I'm Ryan Hogan. Welcome.
And
All
your
right.
name again is
Anthony, Tony,
Tony, last name?
Worcester.
Worcester, as
Like
in
the city,
Worcester?
but not spelled the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, spelled a little different.
Worcester.
That's how we say Worcester.
Yeah, Worcester.
All right, let's hear what's going on with the ambulance software.
Okay, the software that we have is a software that we've been able to get sort of on the economical side. We chose it a couple of years ago when we went with our new billing company. And we only paid $3 a run. So any ambulance report that we created was $3. So if you take that times 800 calls, $2,400 a year. There was no real software. It was all done online, and everything was housed on a server.
Okay.
And we did that through a company called Zoll. Well, about 2 weeks ago on a Friday, we get a letter that was sent about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday that said it was terminating our contract, 60-day notice. And by rights in the agreement, they could do that. There wasn't a whole lot of explanation there. Our concern was normally we're able to gauge this stuff out and make a change like that 2 or 3 months in advance, and so we can plan it out. But if you're only giving us 60 days, we got to vet out a software, figure out what the best software is, and figure out how we're going to correct it. So that's why we're here tonight. We've looked at some software. We've done 3 quotes of different companies, and we think we want to go with AmbuPro. The reason they pulled the plug on us was, I guess there was a data breach with the EF recovery, which was the server, and you know that's HIPAA stuff. So I think Zoll sort of got uncomfortable with the people who handled the server end of it and severed ties, and the people like us who had a lower call volume, we
You
were
were the
like low-hanging
casualty,
fruit,
right.
and off we went. So basically, go
If I
ahead.
could interrupt, because it really helped me understand this when the chief and Tony explained it to me. There's the software, which is Zoll. Then the data we put into the software is stored with a data management company. That's EF Recovery.
Yeah.
Our billing company uses that data to send the bills and collect the revenues for the ambulance. The breach was at the EF Recovery site. There was a security problem. Zoll doesn't house the town's data because we're not big enough. They absorb all the smaller towns in one big capacity purchase from EF Recovery. So EF Recovery has a whole bunch of small clients. It's efficient for them to house us all together. So when they go away, if they're eliminated, that's what causes the crisis. I just think that map kind of helps understand. There's
Absolutely.
multiple players here. We wouldn't change from Zoll if we didn't necessarily have to, because of the way the structure was set up with the $3 a call.
Yeah, we were very happy with the service we got, and with the pricing was very reasonable for us. It fit what we needed, really.
But there was a clause in there that allowed them and probably us also to give
It did.
60-day
It allowed
notice.
us as well.
Kaputsk.
It allowed us to do that as well. So normally you plan these things out. You don't just, and it was like a Friday afternoon, sort of like the White House getting rid of news that didn't want anyone to hear. I just happened to be there and intercepted it, and Tony and I got on the phone right away, and I said, oh, we gotta be in the town administrator's office Monday, because this is,
Yeah.
the last thing we wanna do is interrupt or cause a hiccup in our billing. So that's why we're here.
No, we don't bear any legal responsibility for the data breaches, right? That would be the sole, whoever,
So there was an investigation.
it would be the data company who would pay any damages
The
for
data
anything.
company
Okay.
convinced, or actually did an investigation internally. It was sort of, not really a CryptoLocker, but it was similar, it was ransomware.
Yeah,
It was a form of ransomware that did not publish the data.
okay.
It simply locked it.
Oh, okay.
So there was no HIPAA violation.
Okay.
And it was interesting because this had never happened before, but we had a situation where we had 3 calls we couldn't account for. We knew what they were, but they weren't showing up. And we're like, what's going on? And so it took us a couple of weeks to iron out. Then all of a sudden, we got an email from Zoll saying they've been breached. It's not a big problem, we've been breached. And then, like a month later, we got.
It's more of a problem.
It's a problem,
By the
right.
way.
A lot of companies are getting hit with ransomware lately, and like Fortune 500 companies
Yeah.
too, and their data's,
Well, didn't our own
It's being
police
ransomed.
station get it? Didn't
Yeah,
They did
this
ransom their
last
own
year or the
police
year
station
before,
A couple of years ago.
the police station got hit. But in any event, it created sort of a crisis for us, because we want to maintain our billing and keep our billing coming in with as little interruption as possible. So, in talking to Gene and, I almost said Mike, to Gene and Matt, that the best thing that we could do is to do a reserve fund transfer so that we could loosen that, we could acquire the software as quickly as possible, get it installed, get it trained, everyone trained on it, before they actually pull the plug on us.
have you
So we
used
can-
the software, the new software?
Pardon me?
Have you used the new software?
We have not used this software yet.
I mean, you, either
Not
of you
personally.
I
personally,
haven't,
Have
I
you
haven't.
seen it working?
Yes, we had a,
Did you like it?
we had a company come out and they did a demonstration on it, and this new software, one of the reasons we're actually leaning towards this software is because it's actually, more refined than what we already have.
Okay.
It's only a 2-page system, so it's easy to navigate. It comes with many upgrades and perks that, you know, down the road that are gonna only benefit us. So,
And you think it's easy for the guys to learn it, pick it up quick?
yeah, the town of Northbridge actually just purchased this same software. And I think the chief put it the best way. The chief doesn't go out and do ambulance calls, as he shouldn't. I mean, he's busy running this department. But in a long conversation with the chief had said, "This is even something that I can do, and I don't do calls." He said, "So it's that simple." So,
Great.
and it's like I said, it's much more refined than what we already have. So.
And the stat is like, they have like 200 towns out of
Yeah, they
out
have
of
a-
Massachusetts.
This company here holds, they have 197 companies, 197 municipalities, not just companies, municipalities, they actually service with this particular software. And they've actually retained 98.9% of the companies. That small percentage that they haven't retained was because there was some towns that were able to get something for free, and as we all know, sometimes free is not always the best. So I'm sure that they're probably working out their bugs with that as well. But that's not bad, a 98% retention rate, and they have 197.
And how long have they been in business?
They've been in business since 1980,
Okay,
so.
that's the other.
Absolutely.
If they all got it last year, that's not telling me anything.
Right,
No,
absolutely.
no, and even one of their they actually have a couple of chemical companies that actually are their largest their largest clients. So they don't just specifically do EMS, they do other things as well.
You mentioned that it's got some added things that in the future we can use. And so I'm thinking, I mean, this is fairly costly. I'm not sure what our current software cost us.
It's costing us $2,400 a year for the calls, and I forget what, I think it was like a $3,000, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so is this, I mean, this is this is $63,000.
No.
No.
This
This
is
is
something
different.
different. This is something different. This is the ambulance software for EPCR system and billing. The $63,000 that you're talking about is a separate item. This is,
This is a reserve fund transfer?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
this is-
sorry, I thought we
this
were
is-
talking about this.
oh,
No.
no,
I'm
I'm sorry.
sorry,
Yeah, this
I
is
thought I
something,
made that
this is
clear.
just for
Yeah,
the,
just 'cause
for the software.
the guys are here, I don't wanna have them stay all night, we're gonna go, they're asking for
Cost per call for the.
12,000 for a reserve fund
It's
transfer.
not done per call by our software, the new software, or the old
Yeah,
software?
the new.
New.
The new software is not done by per call volume. It's based off of a call volume of roughly 800 calls, but
guess
pricing is
that's right.
guaranteed. So if our call volume goes up beyond that 800 calls for the first 3 years, our pricing is gonna be guaranteed for that 3-year period. So the 11,000 and some change is the initial setup, which also includes our first year volume and everything, the whole 9 yards. And then every year beyond that, if we sign a 3-year deal, they will take it's 4,000 and some change as well. And that is what will include our call volume. Anything else that goes with it is on top of that. Any kind of updates, service agreement.
Our cost will increase.
It's gonna increase.
Yes.
To answer your question, there's an installation fee, which is around $5,000. And then it's $48.45 per year, so it's 4,000.
So it's doubling.
So it's about $6.05.
Oh, it's doubling, that's how I, it's
That,
doubling.
I thought that's what your question was.
Well, I
That's
know,
why
but
was asking.
so we're having trouble funding the ambulance now. How is this gonna work into our budget? And where are you gonna get the other 5,000 from?
Well, I know, yeah, when you say you have trouble funding the ambulance, I understand that. But without a software, without a software program,
I understand.
you can't bill calls.
Yep, nope, I
Um,
understand.
You can't meet your state requirements for data.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this situation was kind of just thrust on us
Right.
at this point.
Does the state have any grants?
Not for this.
Not for this
Or
type of
kind
thing.
stuff.
Software-related grants for IT use and blah, blah? No?
Not to my knowledge.
Call Charlie.
Have you talked to any of the other towns that have actually used it, that have been using it?
The new software?
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, there are other communities, Webster uses it next door to us.
yep.
There are other communities outside of here, Oxford is using it. I believe
Southbridge,
Southbridge
Dudley.
is using it, Charlton's
And
using
you've
it.
talked to them and
Yeah.
asked them how they like it?
Yeah,
Is it,
yeah, they've had no issues, they've had no down devices or anything. They've had nothing but good things to say about it. And like I said, we've had the opportunity to actually physically use it in a practical application when they came out and did a demo for us.
No,
Is it an open license, so we have 2 ambulances, or would you need to buy one for each?
No, it's,
That pricing includes 4 licenses.
Okay.
So what happens with the licensing is you need 4 licenses.
Okay.
We need 1 for each ambulance. So the way the system works, each ambulance, because it's a software program, pretty much the same thing with anything else, with radio stuff, and you start getting into those kind of things. But we're here for the software. But you require a license for each unit. So each ambulance with this software program will have its own license, and then we'll have 2 licenses within the station itself. Now, that also includes that they can load the software onto any laptop, any PC. The thing is that you can only run it inside the building on 2 devices at a given time. So, and the ambulances, you're gonna run it on the ambulance all the time anyways. So that's what the licensing is for.
You
So
don't
this
need
includes the
any-
4.
you
so
don't need
so
any
you might have,
hardware changes?
Nope, we wouldn't need any additional,
Okay.
so.
so right now, we have a tough book, you call it. It's a computer that's, can get beat around on the ambulance, because they get dropped and things like that. But we have 2 that are,
Why would they get dropped?
There's two for each ambulance. Those would both be registered. So if one went down, you have a backup computer to go to.
Oh.
We're trying to build in redundancy as we go.
I know, that, but it's very costly,
No.
Chief,
I-
as you're
I-
aware.
Hey, listen, I get it, but it's the cost of public safety as well. You know,
Yes,
Public
Chief.
safety's not cheap.
Public safety, yes, public
The other-
safety.
The other perk to this software program is that this software program will actually now run simultaneously with the current dispatch software that the police department uses, IMC. So this is a program that will integrate with that. It communicates with it. So it actually takes a lot of room for error,
The one we're using now or the one we might be switching
the
to?
one we're using now.
Will it integrate to the one that we might be switching to?
It will.
It will. It's portable. This system here will be portable and be able to go anywhere and work with that system.
Because it integrates, it communicates with the dispatch software that's in dispatch in the police station.
Right, but I'm just saying, there was a proposal to change the dispatch to, a community
A
dispatch.
regional, and
Yes,
that's correct,
right.
and those people use software, and they use the IMC dispatch
Okay.
just like they do
Okay.
down here.
All right.
So that wouldn't be,
So my question about the other $5,000 never did get answered, and my question is, when will you need that $5,000 additional?
well,
Because you said that's installation? So you're buying the software at $12,000 and you've got to
Nope,
install,
nope.
no?
The
No,
first
we're
year-
paying it-
first
we're paying
year is
that.
Yeah, the first year is gonna be the $12,000, and then next year, it'll be the $4,000 fee, and then the following year after that, it'll be a $4,000 fee. So it's $4,000.
so you're paying
a year
the
after that.
first year installation, maintenance up front, and then your installation fee for the 11,145.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
What are we being asked to vote on?
It passes over. Yeah,
They're,
this is-
they're asking for a reserve fund transfer for $12,000.
12 even?
Yeah.
Okay.
To help with the installation costs and the training.
Okay.
Now, is the extra 45, or I guess it'd be half that, it's half a year. Is that cost in this number as well, or are we gonna have to make other adjustments to the
Yeah,
budget?
What is this, what are we paying for with $12,000 would be a good thing. Do we have a breakdown?
That's
of
what's
that?
on, did
$12,000.
you folks get a copy of?
I didn't get this.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
all right.
Didn't know.
So let me circulate that around.
Thank you, Chief.
This is the quote for the I thought you had that, so I,
Yeah, $12,000 is gonna be the installation in the first year fee. So
and then
the
you'll pay the,
$12,000
and then you'll pay the
for-
maintenance fee yearly.
Right,
Tony, is that the 5,000 you guys referenced?
correct. There's a $5,000 installation fee,
Yeah.
plus the additional service fee and the service agreement fee of the 4,000 and
Right.
some change. That whole thing will total the $12,000 for the first year.
Bear with me, that seems to
Yep.
be 5 for the installation.
Yep.
45 or
Yep.
5 in
And
the
some
first
change,
year.
yeah.
What's the other couple thousand?
Actually, it might be 6,
Yeah.
and then the 448.
Okay.
Yeah,
But they're two items.
But they're two items that are
Installation in year
installation,
one.
yeah.
Correct.
And that's what you're asking for
There's the
tonight?
software,
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
and then there's the maintenance.
Yep.
I make a
Yearly
motion to
maintenance.
approve?
Yeah, pass this over to Howard, please.
Sure. Support and maintenance.
As a side note, Chief, has the ambulance been running good since we did that last thing that fixed it?
I mean, the new ambulance.
You never asked that question.
The new ambulance is running
He's
great.
new, he doesn't know.
The newer ambulance is running great.
Don't go there.
But I like the way you do that, because I don't like to ignore problems, I like to hit them down the road and look down the pike. All right, so.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, no, you fixed the turbo on it. Just to kind of back up for a second. We can't do a procurement if there's no appropriation. So we needed to find a source of funds.
Correct.
There was a 60-day notice, but operationally, it takes a significant period of time to roll our data from one location to another. So we
45.
really have 30 days.
Yeah.
So this was not really a candidate for fall town meeting.
No.
It needed to come to you.
Yep.
That's why it's in front of you. There will be a procurement. We have 3 quotes in hand. That's how we sized the request to you. But we will officially do a procurement after the appropriation is made. And our best estimate right now is that the system these guys like does appear to be the lowest bidder. It's gonna be a little under what we're asking you to appropriate. We're leaving a little bit of room in case somebody comes back and says, oh, by the way, Andrew Pro just exploded somewhere, you know what I mean?
Right,
You've gotta be able to pick somebody else without not having sufficient appropriation.
So,
That difference between this invoice amount and the 12,000 would just stay in your general appropriation fund?
Mhm.
Sure, okay, all right. Once again, Brian,
I have
aren't
one-
we still in session?
we are.
We have a
So,
quorum?
so Carol had to walk out for a few minutes. She had something to deal with over at the planning board, so we will not be voting immediately, but we will vote when she gets back. I do have one more question, though, before I let these guys go. So the increase in the cost of the software, the yearly increased cost of the software, that obviously was not budgeted in. Where are we gonna, how are
Well,
we
it's
gonna?
not, but the first year is included in this quote,
Oh, that's what
So
this
you-
is. Okay, so the
yeah.
first year's free.
Correct.
so it will
Okay.
be okay for this year.
So,
I wouldn't call
you're
it free.
absolutely right, there's about $2,500 that we
I
haven't
said
budgeted
included,
yet
not
for
free.
future years.
Oh,
Right, not your salary.
Oh, I thought you meant-
Nice, Pam.
I'm sure you'd like that, Pam.
You like that?
Pam, be nice, be nice, be
What,
nice.
what?
Let's try to be,
No
let's,
sarcasm there, right?
No,
move
there
forward.
actually wasn't. It
Let's
was,
move forward.
let's all try to be respectful, please.
Okay.
Okay, so did anyone else have any other questions for the, so unfortunately,
All right.
we're gonna vote when she comes back. I think consensus-wise,
I would
guys
vote
are-
now. I'm
Yeah,
fine
but
voting
we're not
now.
allowed to vote now without a quorum, so.
We actually have a quorum.
We
No, we
do not
don't.
without Carol, we do not have a quorum
We
to
need
vote,
five.
so.
were you counting Jean?
No, I still think we're in session.
Well, yeah, we are, but we've lost our quorum for a vote. I don't think we can vote, Howard.
Okay.
That's
Well,
fine.
we can come back to that.
I
and we
see
can
your
ex-
point, though. I can see that.
I think you guys, my sense is the consensus of the board is we're happy to approve it, so I don't wanna keep you guys, so.
Well,
Go ahead.
they are actually here for the capital article as well.
Okay, why don't we look at
There we
that?
go. So now my mind can flip to where I was originally.
Flip the switch.
There's here an article on the special as well, Mr. Chair.
I see Cheryl, yes.
Okay,
She drew the
so,
short straw, she had, like, maybe, that's okay.
So you're gonna explain the framework of this first?
Okay, so for those watching at home, we're gonna pause on the reserve fund transfer for a moment, and then we're now working to the special town meeting warrant, where the chief, they're here for, what exactly, Jean?
Matt would like me to.
Article 3?
Article 3.
explain-
I think you need to go over an overview of how some of these items came here before we start talking about how they're gonna be spent out.
He's only specifically looking at Article
Three.
3. You wanna
No, it's
proceed?
okay if you don't wanna. just-
No, no, that's fine. Can I go briefly through the special? And
Sure.
is that okay?
Sure.
Just real briefly, just through the summary, and then we can.
Yeah, if you wanna
tackle
go
the
that way, yeah,
capital.
I was trying to,
And,
let's start, okay, let's start Article 1 then.
Well, I'm just gonna explain briefly,
Yeah.
and we can go into detail later.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
Article 1 is the fiscal 18 budget transfers and amendments, and again, just to remind everybody, we use both the annual town meeting as well as the special town meeting in the fall to look at the current year's operating budget. By this time, we know what the estimated new growth would be, and it's still estimated, it's not certified, but the principal assessor feels comfortable using $150,000 towards the budget this year. We only budgeted $100,000. So those are some ins and outs.
Okay.
On different line items, and we can go back to that later. Article 2 is a transfer from free cash to the OPEB account. This is the money that was closed out from the HRA account, which we no longer use. It's closed into free cash, so we thought it was appropriate to put it as transfer to OPEB. Article 3, we are going to, yeah, there's a big typo there. Typo in Article 3.
That's not a European notation for $63.
Euros, 63 euros. yeah.
Euros.
There is a typo there, that should be 63,000.
We wish they were $63.
And the chief and Tony will be addressing that. Article 4, we do not have any prior bills at this time. Articles 5 and 6, we're rescinding debt that was previously authorized because we transferred money from the school construction projects to fund these particular purchases. Article 7, I can't speak to. Article 8 is an economic development incentive. Again, this is for one specific piece that we're funding. Matt will address that later. And Article 9, Bill Cundiff will be here to speak to, as well as Article 10.
Matt, will you be able to address Article 7 tonight? The Gilboa Street property?
That's what Cheryl's here for.
Cheryl's here.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
So what I was trying to get at, Gene, was Article 3, I thought you did, there was an explanation. Proceeds from the boiler fire.
Oh, you wanted that?
That's what I wanted.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
That would be good. We're talking the revenue side.
I misunderstood what you were asking me.
Yeah, how are we paying for this? That's kind of what I wanted to
Oh.
short circuit that question, because it would help. And your
I got you. Sorry.
Have anything to do with Article
So Ryan, I apologize. I misunderstood what he was saying.
That's okay.
We're
We're all feeling, we're all,
New administration.
New-
We're getting there.
new-
We're the same church, different pews everywhere.
New
Matt,
chairman, we're trying to
once
work
we all
out the
start
kinks.
calling you Matt instead of Mike, we'll all be smooth, right? We're getting there, we're working on it.
all
Some
right.
days I don't know what my name is.
We got it. We got it.
Okay, so Article 3.
Yes.
The capital projects.
All right.
Team.
Yes. So we are using the funding from free cash, and the reason why we're trying to fund it through that way, again, free cash should be certified by next week, the latest. It has been submitted to DOR. We received money from the boiler fire,
Okay,
and we did not have that money in time for a town meeting, so we transferred $70,000 from free cash to the HVAC project. Then we received the $83,000. At the time, that was prior to the Municipal Modernization Act, so the money went into an insurance reimbursement receipts for appropriation account, which I thought if it was going to a town meeting, I could transfer from that account directly to a capital article. DOR said, no, you cannot do that. It has to close into free cash. So that's what we're doing. And so as part of year end, it closed into free cash, and that's why we're transferring from free cash to another capital project.
okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Did you get that clarified from the DOR as to why you were thinking along those one lines? Because I think the Municipal Modernization Act was supposed to make some transactions easier for you.
Well,
And us.
Because the Modernization Act went in November, it wasn't
Was it just a
at the
timing
beginning or
thing?
fiscal year. Well, the project was completed too. So we had already closed the town meeting, the project was completed as of June 30. So they're saying, you know what, you just gotta close it in.
Okay.
I was treating it as a transfer because it's a receipts reserved for appropriation account. So I thought as long as I was appropriating it
Yep.
at town meeting, I would have been fine, but they suggested no.
Gotcha.
And, I know Eric knows, the chief is the chairman of the capital committee, capital, I'm missing a word there. Capital Improvement Committee as well. So that's why I'm guessing, well, plus I guess it has to do with the fire department as well.
Correct.
Okay. So you wanna talk about the needed defibrillators?
Right, the cardiac monitors / defibrillators, they actually interpret EKGs. We defibrillate with them. We can use electrical therapy, pace a person whose heart's not working correctly when they're having a cardiac event. Yeah, and they do a 12 lead. They actually look at your heart from 12 different positions. Actually 15s with the ones we were proposing. But what had happened was we brought this to Capitol last year, trying to look down the road and as part of a capital expense. It didn't score as high because it really wasn't a big priority. It was just looking down the road and as far as when we would replace them. And then we got a letter, what, in May?
It started back in January. Back in January, there was a recall on batteries. There was a recall on a battery issue with the current devices that we have. And then there was a subsequent recall after that about the device itself and how its electrical therapy had the potential to not work. So this was a recall that was serious enough that the Food and Drug Administration also got involved with this recall. And using their words, the recall is basically a use of this device could cause serious injury or death. We've had a few occasions where the devices that we have, we believe they've failed on situations, but we can't 100% prove that because in a stressful situation, when you perform a function, a lot of times you think that, did I actually perform that function or did I, did it just not work? Or so we've also had our devices back for service and we have one out now that's being serviced for this exact issue that we're talking about here. So,
Can we back up? Because we're talking recall, right?
yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Okay, now we still have them, and it's out for service, and what's the recall? Where's the recall?
Well, the recall is on the device itself. It's on the therapy boards, it's on the batteries, and it's on the whole overall device itself. So that's the recall. So I know where you're going with that, because
yeah.
because the answer that that Philips, the manufacturer of the device, their answer to the recall is we received a letter in the mail from Philips, and they're actually discontinuing this line altogether. So they're stopping production of the device, they're stopping sales of the device, but they will maintain and service the devices through 2022. Yet the devices are still under a recall, but
Do they produce more than one type of
No.
this device?
just that one.
So
that's
it's not
their-
like they could replace it with a
Right.
subsequent model or
Correct.
something like that? Okay.
Correct.
They've got like 15 or 20 of their models that are all have recalls. They
Right.
have a list of all the models.
And this has affected them greatly too, because we sent the device out for repair.
Right.
And typically, under our service agreement, we will get a loaner device, so we can keep an ambulance in service and we can, have a backup device. But this last time, the issue that they're having at this point internally is they can't even send us a loaner device because they're actually trying to maintain the devices that they have out there. So they're having trouble getting parts, they're having trouble just maintaining their loaner devices. So their loaner system right now is down. So the potential for us to have an ambulance go out of service or drop down to a BLS level because we don't have that equipment exists as well. So this is Philips' answer to the recall. Their answer is they're shutting down the production, they'll just service them and maintain them. If they break, send it back to us. We'll take care of it.
Lieutenant, how many current devices do we have?
We have two.
We have two.
Yes, we have
Are
two.
both currently operating, or is one out?
One is out for service, and we
Okay.
have one that's in service, yes.
Okay, bear with me.
Yep.
If you have two that are in service, physically, where are they? What are they?
They're in the ambulance. They're located
In
in the
one
ambulance.
ambulance?
One is in each.
There's
right?
one of each ambulance,
Okay,
yeah. So
okay.
both ambulances have
All right.
one of these devices in them.
So do you have to currently choose the ambulance with the device to send on certain calls, in theory?
That
We would typically, but
Okay.
because we've wound up with this situation, we've been proactive in taking steps to try to field test some devices. I mean, should this happen, we want to be prepared and ready to address this situation. So we have one of the vendors that we're actually looking at has offered field testing of their device. So that has allowed us to keep our, and they've come in and they've done testing
Okay.
with all the staff, and they've briefed all the staff on how it's operation. So we've gone through an entire program with them, and they're actually allowing us to maintain the level of service that we need now, yes.
How long have we had the original two devices?
Since 2010.
Right.
In ballpark, what did they cost then?
They were about 15,000 piece, so half of what
Sure.
they would be today.
We're
They were
doubling
the-
everything.
But the shelf life of these, I mean, these devices, they have a shelf life. I mean, the shelf life on these devices is between 8 and 10 years.
Even
And the
on
reason
new-
that's-
Even on the new ones?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, some of the technology has changed. Some of these devices, they can send back, they can refurbish, they can do various things to them. But a lot of times with the technology that we're talking about here, the changes in technology, you can't keep up with them. So, much like your phone, I mean, you can only update your iOS so many times before it won't know, you're outdated, it won't even update anymore. So you'll have to get a new phone, so to have your latest versions. So we're at that point now with these devices as well, where within the next year or so, any upgrades in software will kind of be the last upgrades that you'll be able to get. So that's why the shelf life on some of these devices, and the fact that they get bounced around and the wear and tear, that's something else that, becomes an issue, so.
Chief, did these buying the new devices jump over other items on that capital improvements priority list?
Well, they have, because it's become a necessity now, because it's, you know, it's a life safety issue. The FDA says, listen, this is a class 1, this is the most severe recall you can have, one that can prevent or create injury or death.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll fix it, but that doesn't help me liability-wise.
So even
I'm
if
still
they
out there
fixed
using a
it,
monitor that you said
It's
might not
still under
work.
a concern that
Correct.
it's not performing.
Correct.
Even if they were fixed.
Even if it goes.
And that's the change in priority.
It's a
in the
change in
last year.
priority, and then,
Okay.
we're spending, you know, we spend money on a service agreement and buying batteries for these monitors. We're gonna be up for a service agreement for a monitor that is not, has the potential not to work when it's supposed to.
Chief, what kinds of other items did it jump over?
Let's see, well, we have an ambulance that's been on for a couple of years now. On the EMS side,
No, the whole committee.
Yeah, the
Trying to
whole
remember.
list.
okay. You have-
Just conceptually, if you can recall.
Let's see.
I mean, this is the most important safety issue then, that it moved
This,
up
this is,
because of
this
a
has
pure
moved up
public
into the
safety
most
issue.
important
Okay,
safety
fair
issue,
enough.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
The list, I didn't bring my list
No,
of what we
fair.
voted on last
I'll
year,
defer to you being on both events.
but, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we convened the committee to get the endorsement of the capital improvement committee of this move.
Okay.
Which they did.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
fair
capital,
enough.
the
That's-
capital
that's
committee
what I'm looking for.
thought right off the bat, yeah, this is
It moved it up.
really a no-brainer,
Okay.
we need to do this,
Okay,
it makes
appreciate
sense.
that. Okay.
Were any other items discussed, or was this the only item that we discussed?
There was something to do with AC at the senior center, but they raised their own funds for that, so.
Then the cost got cut in
And-
half
yeah,
because
right.
of a better job.
So there was under 10,000 too, right?
Yeah.
See, things double, things get cut in half. I like that.
I hear you.
It's what's allowing us to keep.
Howard, if you look at the
So are
capital
these,
warrant, you can
these
see the
systems are
capital
built
list in
into
there.
the ambulance?
I just
They're
don't
not
have it with me.
Portable?
Yeah.
No, these are portable, we can bring them into the house on a call.
Gene, will there be pushback?
They're getting lighter as they go, but like Tony said, it's technology, it's Bluetooth, it's being able to transmit an EKG to the hospital from the back of the ambulance.
Well, if you call an ambulance, you want it to save your life, not kill you, so I imagine it's.
And that's why, you know,
Extremely important.
and this is one of these things, you know, we really don't like to come and bring, you know, we're the messengers here. We're only, like, we're trying to do the best we can with the tools we
I can't
have.
imagine it's a lot of fun to come see
And-
something like this, chief.
And to be quite honest, you know, we realized as soon as we saw the death letter in May that said, we're pulling the plug on this line, I said, okay, what's next? And then there was the Class 1 recall from the Federal Drug and Food and Drug Administration. So
Is there a ranking of, like, manufacturers? As
there's
far
there's
as,
really only 2 manufacturers left
okay,
outside of Philips, because think about it, they're really not even honoring their service agreement now that we paid money for, because you can't provide us a loaner.
so there was Philips and then 2 other companies.
Right.
Yeah.
We have 2 companies that we sought quotes from.
Okay.
One's Physio, which Pam, you've been a nurse, you've seen Physio around for 40 years in the hospitals. I mean, back in the early 80s, we were using Physios on the ambulances, you know, Life Pack 5s, you know.
Can you tell me why, I mean, the cost doubled, you know? So, and I think, Tony, I think you mentioned something about, you said 12 lead, now I think 15
Now it's
lead.
15
Yeah.
lead, right?
So are we going above and beyond on that for a particular reason, or? I mean,
Well,
I
the
think
minimum is a 12
The more we
lead
can have
now.
is the best, is
It's the
good,
new standard,
best, but
actually.
The minimum is a 12 lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't do a 12 lead, if you have a
Yeah.
patient that's
Yeah.
having a cardiac event and you
You're not
don't do
gonna-
a 12 lead, they're gonna pull your ticket when you
Yeah.
get to the hospital.
Mhm,
You're not giving best practice and best care. But now, it's even gone from a 12 lead to a 15, where you can actually have a couple other angles of
Okay.
a picture of the heart, so. And honestly, these monitors, when we bought the Philips, they paid $16,000 for them. They were half of what Physio and Zoll was. We just bought the cheapest device, quite
Oh,
honestly.
I see.
They're also half of the monitor as well,
Okay.
because these devices here.
It's like a baseline monitor,
These,
really.
these devices here have features that, and it's sheerly because technology.
Right.
They
Right.
have temperature monitoring, and they have CO monitoring, they have all these other
Tell you
important things
everything.
that were not available with the Philips when that was something that came about.
Yeah, when
And
we-
that's become the new gold standard
Sure.
too, so unfortunately, we don't create the standards.
No.
We just have to abide by them.
When we bought the Philips monitors, end-tidal CO2 or capnography was not required on an ambulance. It's now required.
Yeah.
Now they've added the CO, carbon monoxide monitoring, temperature monitoring for cardiac arrests and drownings and things like that, so.
What's the warranty on the new devices?
It's one
One year.
year.
Whoa.
And
know.
what's the life expectancy on the new ones? Have they improved, or is it still what you said about?
We'll get 10 years out of them.
Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna have to put a revolving number then in the capital plan.
Absolutely,
10
absolutely.
years, and whatever, 20
The
something.
good thing is that after that 1 year, I mean, you're required to have a service agreement with all your medical devices anyways, by the state. So, the good thing is that, a service agreement, first year, the service agreement's covered because we get you 1 year warranty. And we already pay a service agreement for the current devices that we have, so there'd be no increase in that because we're just gonna take that instead of paying for the service agreement for this device. It'll just get transferred.
It's
to
shifted, but
the new
is
device.
the cost gonna be the same?
It'll be fairly close.
Okay.
And that's the other thing is batteries. We're right now, we're up to buy batteries too. But batteries are $400 a piece. You have to have 2 on the ambulance and 2 backups. So, there's redundancy that's built in, and it's costly. So, this is why we felt, with this FDA recall, and then the fact that we gotta replace all the batteries, we have to pull the pin and do what's best in the interest of the people that we protect.
And the other piece of this is once there's an industry, a legal profession,
Mm-hmm.
but only certain people in that industry.
Right.
Who follow these recalls and then advertise the fact that this device has been recalled.
Killing people.
So if you have been hurt or lost a loved one, contact us and we'll have a heyday with this. So there's an open invitation right now online from just about every personal injury product liability attorney in the country. It's part of, let's try to certify a class action
Sure.
individual lawsuits.
We've got copies of the three recalls for the for these monitors. One was a couple of years ago, and it was a rebooting. You could be in the middle of a cardiac arrest or given electrical therapy and would begin to reboot.
Right.
That's not a good thing.
Timing, timing.
So can you actually, speaking to what Matt said about being sued or whatever, can you actually tell when it was the fault of the machine?
He said earlier, no.
So if the machine did in fact
Fail.
kill somebody by accident, would you be able to tell definitively that it was the machine or not?
Well, we don't really know.
See, that's the, yeah, they-
Because
The machine can tell you
Yeah.
if the plaintiff's attorney is sophisticated enough
Yeah.
to subpoena the
Right.
records from the machine.
Because everything is recorded that machine
Nobody
does.
watches this
Every
stuff.
blood pressure, every pulse, every EKG is all recorded and stored in that monitor.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, we're at the cusp of making this decision, and when we talked about it internally, this was one of the factors. Are you overexposing the town to potential liability knowing that
Absolutely,
the product
yeah.
is in trouble? I think the manufacturer, I used to consult the manufacturing firms. When you pull your product, and you don't have your next generation product ready to go, you're telling the industry something. It's time to get out.
Like we messed up.
Yeah, whoopsie. We
Pretty
did that with a
much.
washing machine once, that we couldn't get the seal, and we sent it out, and units were bought, and then we ended up with this huge liability. It was-
And we've got copies of the documentation if you'd like to see it. We've got the death letter from May.
Does it have a skull and crossbones?
When you're saying you're
at the
pulling the
top?
plug
We'd
on a
like to
whole
call it
line,
something.
and you're not ready to
Death
go
of
with
the
your next one, like you
machine.
just said.
Not death of the people using
Correct.
it.
That's use
Death
of
of the machine,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
So once
Yeah.
again, the way this will roll out is if there is support at town meeting, there would be an appropriation.
Okay.
Both of the remaining manufacturers in the industry have a statewide master purchasing agreement with ODS. So we won't go to a full advertisement procurement. We'll pit these two companies against each other in a competitive situation.
Do you
The
have?
field test is a mandatory term in the ODS contract. So both Zoll and Physio must provide the town with the unit for a period of time for field testing We have to give them feedback after the fact, but it's almost gonna work like an RFQ, but technically not, because we don't need to do that.
Do you have a preference on the brand?
Um,
And you just said the
Well,
two
Did you
brands.
just say Zoll?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you just, that's the other piece, is you just said.
That's why we have a
Yeah,
preference.
yeah.
Yeah, we
We're-
can't
We
say,
have
Right.
we're trying to create a
Right.
level playing field for the
Right.
two firms.
Can I ask it another way? You said one of the two firms being considered Zoll, whose reporting software we just.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, is that allowed to be a consideration that we, or your,
Yes, and the
Yes,
reason for
okay.
that is because Zoll is one big company
Hmm.
with many different departments.
yes.
So
Subdivision.
that is Zoll Data, this is Zoll
Hardware.
Hardware and Cardiac Monitoring Division, so they're two separate
They
divisions.
still severed the relationship.
Yes, they
So,
did.
Welcome
yeah,
back.
there's language in all of our procurement statutes about the lowest responsible
okay, as long as that's.
participant in the process.
I go
But
back,
we
I
may
go
or may
back
not-
to we hired, I know this was before
We
your
may or may not
time.
have to go there.
Yeah, and before your time, Matt, but the people, we had two roof leaks when we built the new schools. and
Oh,
then-
yeah.
Then we hired them to do the gymnasium roof, because they were the cheapest cost. And I'm like, you know, I'm listening to this meeting in the car and I'm banging, you know, because I'm involved in the basketball program with the gym, and we had a leak there too as well, so.
Right.
Welcome to government.
Welcome to government. Okay, yes,
I
go ahead, Eric.
vote to,
Moved.
I move to vote on the, pass.
Okay, so what I'm gonna ask is, just because I went through the April meeting minutes this weekend, where we bounced around from article to article, and it was very hard for someone who was there to do it. So I prefer,
Starting
we've
at
talked to
one?
these guys, I'd like to talk to Cheryl about the article she's involved with, and then we'll start at Article 1 and
He was
just.
talking
I was
about.
talking
Oh, you're talking about the reserve fund
Yeah,
transfer?
the
Okay,
reserve fund transfer, that's what I meant.
okay. I will be happy to
I'll
accept.
second that.
So a motion has been made to approve the $12,000 transfer from the reserve fund to the ambulance expense fund. Any other questions or discussions?
It's visible.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The 9 from you, okay, unanimous. Excellent. While we have the chief and lieutenant here, do we have anything else for them? Thank you very much, guys, for your information and your
Thank
patience
you.
with us.
Have a good evening.
We have a lot of
Thank
questions.
you.
Safe travels.
Thanks.
Initial those 3.
Good job, chief.
Come on up, Cheryl.
Erica, I don't think I've met you. Charlotte Mania, the treasurer collector in town.
Nice to meet you.
I have a handout if you just wanna take one and pass it along. So let me give you a little history about that parcel.
So we're on Article 7 to
Yep.
approve the Gilboa Street land.
Yep. Back in September of 2014, that parcel was put in land court with another parcel assessed to the same owner. The reason being that the water sewer department had a pump station at 105 Gilboa, and this parcel directly abuts the water sewer department. And after speaking with Bill Cundiff and Bob Sullivan and Mike Kaczynski, we felt it was in the town's best interest to foreclose on these parcels and take them as town-owned property. Upon the title search that was done in land court, there was a title flaw found at 43 Gilboa. And when the original Schuster's Mill was dissolved, this parcel was not included in the deed transfer that went to Guilford of Maine, and then subsequently went to Interface, and then went to Cousins Corp. So he never really owned it. So I had to disclaim the tax taking for 43 Gilboa Street, assess the correct owners, which would be the heirs of the Schuster Mill, rebill them for the taxes, and then they did not pay. We have reached out to them through letters, so now the property is back in tax title. There's been a new taking done on it, but because of the title flaw, the only way to get clear title on this property would be to do an eminent domain taking.
When you do that, everything else halts and you start fresh. You
Well,
start to-
it's my understanding after speaking with Rich Bowen that that would clear the title
Yeah.
issue.
We've done it once before.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
Ha-
feel ignorant asking this. So after, if Article 7 were passed, the town would then own the land? Is that correct? Is that-
Well, you would have to do an eminent domain taking on the parcel. Which,
It doesn't look like anything can be done with that land because it's running through. So is it just the fact that they're just not paying their taxes on it that
yes.
we would want to take it back from them because it's just not?
Yeah, and after speaking with Bill, the town's filed an FNP plan with Mass DOT. At some point, the town would like to extend the bridge and put sidewalks on both sides, so that piece would be lucrative to the town.
Now,
The
have the
plot
Schusters
number 20
responded to
That's
any
the
of your
water
letters?
station.
Is the water department.
Yes.
No, Mrs. Cave lost her husband last year.
Yeah.
Oh, Dave
They
did-
live in different parts of the country,
Yeah.
and none of them have responded, so.
I'm sorry. So sort of follow up on my question, the approving of Article 7 would allow the town to take it by eminent domain? Correct.
Yes.
So once we did that, we would then own it. No further town meeting action would be required. Is that correct?
No, I think, what would Rich have to do?
I think for town meeting reasons, the selectmen will definitely be involved.
So-
Not if we do an eminent domain taking, there would be.
I'm just kind of looking for a one sentence, what is this? This allows the Board of the Selectmen to, this town meeting article would allow the Board of Selectmen to,
To act, to
To
either
act.
accept a gift or to proceed with eminent domain.
Are you looking for some language help for the flyer? That we can maybe ask
eventually I
Rich.
would, but I'm trying to,
There's no financial in here.
Well,
right?
there is back taxes owed on the property.
Okay, so back taxes, legal amount to pay, for legal help to, if we go eminent domain, or gift, I mean, there's always this, the lawyers have their fingers in there somewhere, right?
Eminent domain would require an appraisal. How would you fund the
Would-
appraisal?
Would these heirs be able to come back and say you didn't give us enough money on eminent domain?
No.
Because I know when we did eminent domain at the corner of, up on West Street, to take down a couple of trees we couldn't
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
we ended up paying a lot more than we thought.
I don't think that was eminent domain. Carol, I
think-
think there was an agreement to take down some trees or something.
I
but
think there was some eminent domain thing, but anyway.
Yeah, I remember there was
I mean, if you
financial.
take something by eminent domain,
Usually it has to be used for town use.
oh, I know that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've had my property taken by eminent domain, and I went to court and I got an awful lot more money than what they offered me, that's all I get to say.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a lot easier, and it wasn't the town of Douglas that took my property, it was the state of Massachusetts. But it's a lot easier to, kind of work with people than. Yeah,
We have
but-
tried
But,
that.
but when you're sending them letters, do you say, will you pay your taxes? And they're probably saying, I'm not gonna waste my time, because I'm not paying the taxes on this.
You
Or
know,
you're
this is
saying-
not really buildable,
I know
because you
it's
can
not.
see.
I know that it's not, but you don't say to them, you know, there's a difference between that, saying, you know, you haven't paid your taxes, or saying, you know, the town would like to have, you know, get ownership of this property, and if you would work with us, it would be easier for us, and it doesn't really have any value, I'm sure they know what the property is.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I would leave that up to Rich Bowen to write
Yeah.
that letter.
Well, the thing is, he could be looking at it just from a, legal point of view compared to. I
If
mean,
they gift it to the
yeah.
town, I don't know that it will clear the title.
Okay, because, I mean, the Schuster people have always been pretty good, they had a history of being good to the town. And so they would probably be willing to work with you if they could, but I can see where they're not gonna be paying taxes on property that's pretty useless.
Yeah. I don't,
You know,
they
the
didn't even know
elderly
that they
people, too.
owned it.
Right.
It was
It was a
originally
mistake
part
that-
of the mill.
Yeah,
And
okay,
that tract of land was
Yeah.
dropped from the deed.
that was dropped indeed.
It's a clerical error,
Yeah, I
sounds
don't,
like.
it was, yeah.
Yeah, but you can see where the problem is with the title. Other people thought they owned it, so
They transferred it and verbally
But
and,
there's adverse possession, there's other things that, I mean, it's kind of a useless piece of property, I don't know if anybody would fight for it, but it clouds title.
I mean, eminent domain can be, I mean, it has a nasty reference, you know,
Yeah.
and connotation. But there has been discussion about that you can do eminent domain in a friendly way as well, and I think that's what the town is attempting to do here.
Yeah,
It's not,
Yeah.
oh, by hook or by crook, we want that property, it's,
Right.
You know.
And if we're planning, if there is a potential plan to put sidewalks in there, then the eminent domain
Yeah,
is even
perfect.
stronger, because
Right.
then it's a public safety
yep,
situation.
Yep.
And so they have even a stronger eminent domain claim.
Well, you know, I'm not saying that they shouldn't take it by eminent domain. I just don't want someone to come back on us when it'd probably be very easy just to explain to them why we're doing it or something. That's
which
all.
is what Ryan was trying to
Right,
get,
right.
to help me out with the wording, you know?
So I would tell you that at the moment, I would be against this article.
okay.
And the reason would be that it does appear to authorize the town to transfer available funds or borrow a sum sufficient to fund,
Yep.
you know, to Carol's point, any taking or any other actions, whereas a tax title taking through the land court, foreclosing on the tax title,
Yep,
gives us the property free and clear, but for, we've extinguished the taxes we're owed.
yeah,
Whereas an eminent domain proceeding, my perception would be, leaves us susceptible to someone asking us for what they perceive to be fair market value. If the wording were to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, great. I understand that the perception is it's gotta be taken by eminent domain because
an
that
order
would clear the
taking.
title.
yeah.
I'm unsatisfied, at least from what I see.
How,
Do we know what this title issue is?
Yeah, the title issue is that when Schuster's Corporation was dissolved, this particular lot was left off of the deed that transferred all those properties that were owned by Schuster to Guilford and Maine. Guilford and Maine, it was assumed that it was assessed to them, that the title included that the deed included that parcel, and it wasn't until upon the title examination, when I put it into land court, that it came back that there was a title flaw, that particular parcel was dropped.
I mean, it
Out of the
got
corporation.
transferred 3 times then,
It
right?
did.
It was never properly transferred out of the corporation?
No, it was not.
Before it went defunct?
No,
Okay,
There were 3 transfers, Howard.
okay.
Okay.
If I could just direct you, there is a page after the warrant page that has the motions. And under Article 7, it says, I move that the town raise and appropriate the sum of X to fund the taking and or purchase of 43 Gilboa Street. And I would
Dan,
like
I'm
to know
sorry,
what
where-
I would
yeah,
like
where-
to know what the X is.
Where is that?
It's on the motion, there's a motion page that's done horizontally.
Hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Article 7. I would like to know what the intent is for the number.
Yeah, right, with a number maximum.
Yeah, that's what we'll vote on, in my humble opinion. I'm not voting on actually the warrant article. I'm voting on what the intent of the Board of Selectmen is to make, this is what I'm gonna vote on. This is what's gonna be presented to town meeting.
After looking at this, I think I can understand why now the lawyer is saying you need to take it like by eminent domain, because even though you have these people's names, this was actually in a corporation.
it was, which is now
And that's a
defunct.
whole different thing, the corporation is defunct,
Yep.
so you've got some
Mess.
serious, it's
So
not
they
like,
can't
it wasn't,
deed
it's
it
not
to
like
us.
they always owned it. No,
No.
they can't deed it to you,
No,
no, because they don't really own it either. The corporation was somebody else. So I don't think you have any other choice but what you're talking about.
no. It was Attorney Nolan, I don't know if you're familiar with her, of Claremont, but she's the one who did the title research on it.
Do we have an answer to my question?
You don't know?
No, because there was no amount assigned for the article?
I'm not quite sure where we're at now. This doesn't
So-
it doesn't feel cooked to me if
No,
there's no.
it's not really ready for prime time. I mean, if there's a fair market value demand, then you can't go forward with appraisal without, eminent domain without an appraisal anyway. The appraiser may come back and say it has no value because the water course is in the middle of it,
Yeah.
Right.
but you're leaving us, we're exposed to that potential extra expense.
I mean, the laws with regard to eminent domain are fair market, is it not? Or is it?
Yeah. That's
Right.
Institutional,
Does it have to be an independent,
yes.
that assesses the value?
If we have an interest, we can't just have the assessors give it a value.
How would we know who to pay if we don't know who to defend, name as a defendant in a land court action?
I think you just leave a bag of cash on the land and whoever grabs it first is.
Well, we have taxes, don't forget, that are still owed.
Right.
We could forgive the taxes as payment. I mean, that's a possibility, and that's a cash, that's a value, there's value associated with it.
Cheryl, do we know?
I don't have an
$10.
updated figure.
If I didn't know the taxes, or they weren't assessed against me, and you forgave those as consideration for taking my property, I still want money for taking my property.
Well, they were reassessed.
Well, that's you, Howard.
Just,
I
They were
understand.
reassessed to the family. I would say it's roughly $1,000
Okay.
without legal fees.
Yeah.
I agree with Pam, if I had a cap on the proposal, I don't really care what you do within that cap or how you do it. But I want a cap.
No, I agree.
Is it possible to create the motion between now and town meeting to have a cap in it?
Would have to have it appraised.
Well, obviously, that was the intent, because it's got X's here. But it's just,
So you can foreclose on the property and have an auction, right?
Not with
No.
this, because I can't do a land
she
court
can't
foreclosure.
gain
Normally,
legal
if it was a
control of it.
land court foreclosure and we received judgment from
Right.
land court, we could auction
it-
the property off.
I
But,
was just
Yeah.
thinking that if the town did that foreclose, then, it's kind of a conflict of interest, but let's say some member bought it and then said, hey,
Oh,
give
gifted
it,
it.
give it back to the town, so you buy it at the auction for $1 and then give
Yeah.
it back to the town. and
That's
say-
the whole issue, though. They
Right.
can't clear the title through the land
Yeah.
court.
Is to,
yeah.
Is
Well,
there,
I mean, we can pull the article, we can hold off on it, I can speak further with Rich Bowen.
Matt, do you have a concern that no number can be filled in there without an appraisal?
Yeah, but you kind of confused me even more. Well, no, you didn't confuse me, you just gave me more concerns when you said, who are we gonna pay even if we know what
Yeah,
we think it's worth?
yeah.
The corporation
I
died a
can't get a
long time
release.
ago.
I can't get a release.
Can we get a
I-
decline of payment, or, I mean,
From who?
well, the past
No.
people that thought they owned it?
No.
No.
No, the way it was, when it was reassessed, it was reassessed to all the heirs of the
Schuster.
Schusters. Which,
I will just say that it seems to me there are other ways to do this.
okay.
All right, we'll push it back to Rich. Do you have the opportunity to hold it as unclaimed property? The money? In other words, if you have an assessed value, you don't know who you would pay it to, an appraised value. Say, if you can prove that you had title to this back
Right.
when, you can have the money that we set aside for it.
Yep. That's
I'm just
interesting.
thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It sounds, it's a little bit contrived.
A promissory note?
Who's gonna,
I'm not offering.
Who's gonna
Yeah.
what? I mean, you hold unclaimed property, don't you? Or is that the state treasurer?
no, I don't.
Did the attorney think that we could take it without having it appraised?
I haven't spoken to Rich Bowen about this in
Okay.
a while. I've asked him to reach out to the family, and this is what he drafted the article and said this was the way to go. so.
You know what, if he thinks this is the way to go, and I'm, probably brought up the can of worms, I think we ought to just go with it. Let the
Chips fall where
chips
they
fly
may.
where they may.
I was just about to say, we seem to go around and around without,
So you're not
Direction.
deciding, the board of selectmen will decide. So if there are absolutely no ways to do this, then it'll stop at the board.
The
Or at
board
least you-
has reviewed these articles, have they not?
Yeah, the other night.
And they agreed with them?
I think it was on the advice of council, or relying upon the advice of council.
The only question for us is a vote to approve or, I'm sorry, recommend or not recommend the motion, correct?
Right.
So the motion has a blank in it.
Yeah, there's no amount.
so I was gonna suggest that we pass over making a recommendation on this article at the time, and if things are clear.
Postpone?
Postpone.
Or make no
or-
recommendation?
Postpone, and if we have a clearer picture before town.
6:30.
At 6:30 before town meeting. I don't feel comfortable voting on it, I don't know how
Yeah,
everyone else
it's
feels.
pretty nebulous.
Are we publishing something
Yes.
though beforehand?
Yes.
So I would move that we vote. I make a move that we vote. Well, when we get around to Article 7, I would move that we vote on it.
We have had other articles where we met prior to town meeting and the finance committee has made a recommendation at that time. And I think that in the warrant flyer, it's usually stated as such.
Yeah.
Cheryl, is there a chance that number would fill in before town meeting?
Well, depending on if we could have it appraised and, or if you wanted me to use what the outstanding tax value is, the outstanding tax title is.
It's really not up to us. It's,
It's up
it's
to
a,
the
it's,
selectmen.
could be a legal issue. I think that's an administrative
Yeah,
decision.
I was trying to find the assessed value.
it's only $1,000.
How much?
Oh, yeah, the assessed
Back it
value.
out from the tax
Oh.
bill.
Oh, no, that's the other one. This is the one down across.
What value would generate a tax bill of $1,000?
It was 4,700 for
This is the one
2014.
across.
That was the total?
Rounded up to
Yeah, the
24.
total assessed
Okay,
value.
so that, the value of it is 47.
47?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Does anyone have any other questions for Cheryl?
No.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank
you.
Thanks for
Okay.
coming in
Have a good night.
with this problem.
But these are always-
You clarified it nicely for us.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
All right, next up in the lineup is the town engineer, Bill Cundiff.
Oh, he magically appeared.
No, it's fine.
Good
Did
evening.
I cut you, I'm sorry, did I cut you short?
How are you?
Sure.
No, it's just he has
Oh.
the order taking parcels. out.
If you liked Cheryl's, you'll love mine.
Oh, no.
Bill, do you know everybody here?
I've met you, yeah.
Okay, good. So, are we doing Article 9? Is that?
Well, why don't we take 10 first, because
Okay.
Cheryl is here, so I don't want to keep her on this.
No, Article 10's great.
Goodness.
I apologize for getting this out so late.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
This is Article 10,
Okay.
and while I'm distributing,
Thank you.
Come on, Jimmy.
very efficient. While we're doing this, I've got 3 of these too. We've got a couple of subdivisions in town that the planning board has accepted the ways as public ways, and, well, the town has it, accepted them as public ways, but under the advice of the planning board. And within those projects, the planning board has historically, and within their regulations, required that roadways receive a projection to the next abutting property. So it's a reserved strip of land that allows interconnectivity from an existing, new subdivision to an adjacent piece of property. And that's the theory behind it. It's to provide interconnectivity to other parcels. When we were accepting these a number of years ago, and specifically these two projects, one at Brookside Estates, the other at Royal Crest Drive, under the advice of council, we did not take those odd strips. There's a total of 4, 2 in each project. And town council said because basically there was no paved road, there was no point in taking it in spite of what our regulations had called for. So we didn't take it. The developers for each of these projects have since become insolvent. And they don't exist anymore. So the issue comes up that we have a number of parcels that taxes are not being paid on. So Cheryl kindly contacted our office, and we put this on for the town meeting warrant. It actually originated from an individual owner that was associated with one of these companies, and it became an issue for him getting some permits. So we don't want that to happen. We want to resolve this issue. So the whole point of this article is to take these properties, whether by gift, eminent domain, or just accept the deed, that'd be gift, and acquire them. I do believe that because, number one, because the technical owners are no longer solvent, I don't think we'll have an issue with that. Number two, the individuals do not seem to object, the individuals that are associated with those companies.
Okay, so the individual, we would be dealing with the companies that went defunct,
Even though the companies have gone defunct, the people are still accessible.
and those are the appropriate people to be working with on this, for all intents and purposes.
That's a tough question.
That's a
Yeah,
tough one.
okay,
Who is the
sorry,
vote
I
for
asked the
appropriate
wrong question.
What is the purpose of acquiring these lands?
Two reasons.
E-
Number one is to get them off the tax rolls so Cheryl doesn't have this ongoing
Mhm.
issue. And number two, to allow future development within the town,
So,
access to properties.
so it wouldn't, I guess my point being, we would have to take ownership of them. I guess I'm saying the abutters couldn't make an offer on it and just extend their lots.
No, because we want to retain
So we-
entrance to the back land.
Well, I think the issue becomes the companies are no longer solvent,
So
so
I mean, the
they,
people living in these two lots that
they
abut
couldn't
it.
sell them is the issue.
So
I
like,
guess the
like on
abutter could,
corner,
out of the
he's
kindness of
good.
their heart, pay the taxes,
Okay.
but they wouldn't own the property.
Okay.
But to Carol's point, is the reason we're kind of one of the reasons we're kind of going through this is we want to maintain access to the back property for future development?
Right.
Or access. That's the point of the regulations. It's
Okay.
about interconnectivity and safety.
Okay.
So
We had
right
an issue
now,
down
for example, both of these projects have one point of access and egress. Landowners internal to the site. We do have a project that's proposed on one of these properties abutting Brookside Drive.
Okay.
And they're proposing they've obtained an easement and they're proposing to run the water line easement over one of those properties. So logistically, I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but they've provided a deed, so.
They request in next year's budget, we have some funds for a real estate attorney to join some of our
So,
meetings and help us
um,
out here. Holy cow.
So my question is, again, this is written the way any article is written, gives you choices.
Yes.
There is no motion here on my little motion sheet. So therefore, my question to you is, what is the intent of the board, or who is going to be making the motion? Will it be to accept, vote to see if the town will vote to accept a deed, or to see if the town will vote to take by eminent domain? Which of those are we gonna use?
I think we're going to leave it as an option. It gives the selectmen the authority to use the vehicle that
Okay.
is best suited for
okay.
them.
Okay.
And it gives them an opportunity to negotiate if they need to. Even though there's no dollars assigned with this, if it's gifted, then we could move forward, or take by eminent domain if it's determined to have zero value.
Okay.
While the guy's assessing, over off of Gilboa Street, he
Send
can
them
come
over.
and do these for as well.
You know, the cost of getting these things assessed is not cheap.
The appraisals.
Yeah, these
Yeah.
appraisals,
I know.
you know,
Bill's gonna do that. part, too.
Ideally, what we try to do is get a friendly taking,
Yeah.
so that we communicate with the landowners, and we get to a point where we're comfortable that, you know, they see there's no value. They don't like getting notices from Cheryl.
right.
They don't like not
having the
being able to get
permits.
their permits,
Right,
that
right.
they want. So, you know, it's
Right.
it's an issue for them,
Plus, there's nothing they can do with this property,
right?
except access some
That's
property
right.
in the back. Other than that, none of this is buildable whatsoever.
Bill, have you done this before?
Yes.
Give us where, an example.
We've had gifts that were taken, most recently on Monroe Street. Jim Pine gifted some land to us. There was zero
Owner.
money transferred. That was on a recent, maybe a year or two ago, article.
I mean, have you had the situation where the corp, right, the developer, LLC, XYZ LLC, developer, went out of business, done, and later you had these little cuts within the development you wanted to grab into the town?
Not individually, but the project as a whole, we've done, where the developers have gone under. Shady Knolls Estates is an example,
Yeah.
where the developer was no longer, we have a number of examples I could give you a plethora.
Let's stay with Shady Knoll. What
Where is
what
Shady
the
Knoll?
town do?
Downs Road,
Okay.
Manzi Way,
Okay,
Crescent.
yeah, yeah.
What the town do then to transfer property from a defunct corporate developer to the town?
It was an order of taking that the board voted on. It went to town meeting, and then we recorded it at the Registry of Deeds. It was a simple vote.
When we say a taking in that context, taking by eminent domain?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not like a tax taking.
Okay.
Is
So
there-
in Shady Knoll, as an example, the town went through a taking by eminent domain,
Yes.
taking land from a corp that was dissolved or
Correct.
involuntarily dissolved.
Correct.
And who did somebody, the LLC former members or the corp shareholders have to be notified or anything like that? How did the party being taken from that was no longer in existence
I
get
think
taken?
My recollection is we had to advertise in a newspaper, and I think that was the level of notification that we had to do, because it wasn't like you had an address to mail the
Mhm.
information to.
Mm.
We had some cases where we did have an address, and we did send it to the
No,
address.
I like the example we're on. And town council was satisfied, gave an
Yes.
opinion that we were now the owner of record?
Yes,
Okay.
with clear title, because the eminent domain clears that up.
Do we get title insurance policies when we take like that?
We have not to date.
Okay, all right, okay.
Is there any way to prevent situations like this in the future through an ordinance or something along those lines, where if you're putting in a development and, you know, further down the road you go out of business, those parcels will automatically transfer to the town? We would have to make that an ordinance, right? Or
I don't know if you can do that legally. I'm not a
Okay.
lawyer, but.
What you could do is have it happen before you
What we-
permit to occupancy permit.
I can tell you what we're now making a practice of doing.
Okay.
Instead of having fee interest, which are these separate parcels, we are requiring only easements over private property for these sorts of things. So that avoids the whole issue on the taxes. The abutters can own it.
Okay.
We're good.
So it's all built in.
Right.
Anybody else have any other questions on Article 10?
Oh, I'm good.
Is there, I apologize,
No,
is
no.
there a motion?
No, and I apologize, again, I got this out late.
So Rich only sent us the article, trying to check my email here.
Bill, will there be one?
7 o'clock.
There will be a motion. Who makes it? I'm not sure.
Well, your theory right now is it'll parallel that language of broad authority to take or gift, et cetera, or
Correct.
maybe again, without a max number as to what would be prepared to
Correct.
take it for.
The idea is to have a $0 transfer
That I like.
in any way, shape, or form.
But we don't know that language will be what gets presented before special town meeting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I can't see it deviating, Howard, more than to see if the town will vote to accept a deed for, in that first, I move that the town accept a deed for or take by an eminent domain certain parcels of land.
Right.
I mean, I think that's how the wording is. I don't know how it would deviate. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the Gilboa Street, I mean, this is an exact parallel. Rich has gotta give us some language.
Yeah.
And, I'm looking at Gene, I mean, because I asked Gene offline here, but how would the board go about paying for an appraisal if one was required out of the board's budget?
Right.
So we're not asking town meeting to raise and appropriate any funds
Yep.
above and beyond an existing budget line item. So this,
We may have to address it in the spring, but we're not at this time.
Yeah.
right,
I've got it, I've got my answers, yeah. I'm good.
Anybody else on Article 10?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You can't get rid of me yet.
Yeah, he's got Article 9 too. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Cheryl. Are you ready for Article 9?
We are.
Article 9, the planning board just had a public hearing regarding Article 9, which is a zoning bylaw change. They voted to support and recommend the change. I'll give you a little history before I get into the article. Originally, site plan review, when a commercial development project comes in, typically it triggers what's called site plan review. And currently, the planning board will do a review of the site plan to make sure it has safety primarily, has adequate parking, queuing for vehicles, stuff like that, lighting, landscaping, that kind of stuff. Site plan review used to be housed with the Zoning Board of Appeals. A number of years ago, it got transferred to the planning board. This proposed zoning bylaw change, which basically pertains to the use of drive-through or drive-up windows. It's a special permit to have a drive-through or drive-up window in a commercial operation that currently resides with the Zoning Board of Appeals. One of the things that the Zoning Board of Appeals considers when they review permitting these things, these special permits, is traffic impacts. That's a little bit of an overlap with what the planning board does with site plan review. So now you potentially have one permit person going before two boards for a similar issue. And sometimes you get differing opinions and they'll get a permit here, but they won't get one here. The idea of this change is to make it more streamlined for permit applicants, have one-stop shopping, and have consistency in the decision-making process. Now, I know the Zoning Board of Appeals supports this article, as does the Planning Board. So, really, I'm optimistic. It should be fairly straightforward at town meeting to move forward, but, you never know. So if there's any questions.
No?
It doesn't change, what's on it, it's just who gives the okay.
That's correct.
So, and this way here, they're gonna be going before the planning board anyway with everything else they need, and this is just one more thing on it.
That's right.
I think makes sense to have it with the planning board.
Could you bring all easy ones like that?
Hey, bring them
Of course,
on.
this one has no financial.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no problem coming with those to this board.
Anything else for Bill, anyone?
No.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Bill.
Thank
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night, Bill.
Good night.
Can we whip through this now?
I don't know if we're gonna whip through it, we're gonna go through it. Okay, so let's start back at Article 1, which Jean quickly went through, and maybe we can have a little more detail, especially for those who weren't here last time, as
So-
to the, go ahead.
So we're gonna save the approval of minutes till last again.
We are. I did such a bang up job on the 411 ones, it's gonna go really fast. All right. So, Article 1, fiscal year 2018 budget transfers and amendments. Want to walk us through this? Jean?
As I mentioned earlier, because I misunderstood Matt's, we're still getting to learn each other's cues.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
This is a balancing article. We do this at the fall town meeting every year now, because we get the state aid numbers later than we used to, and also new growth is certified in the fall. We do have a pretty good estimate at this time. New growth is 150,000. We used 100,000 as an estimate for the spring town meeting, for the annual. So this is rebalancing that. The article motion is going to be raise and appropriate the sum of 50. That's the difference between the 150 and the 100 that we used. And a transfer of the sum of 125 for the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation to put money back into the salary line that we decreased it because we didn't have the funds available at the time at the annual town meeting. Since also that time, we did have one additional student for Norfolk Aggie. That's the $16,000. I'm going to skip the Douglas Public Schools for a sec. The increase in tree warden expense was brought forward to us by the highway superintendent. We have some trees that we need to take down. That's due to safety reasons, I believe, Matt, right?
Right, we've just, long story short, we've had a bad year. It's been a tough year to be a tree.
Very.
The drought last year didn't help.
Yeah, our concern is that, we have trees ready to fall that are the town's responsibility, and there were not enough money was put in the budget to cope with it.
Okay.
The increase in police wages, and you may see this again at the spring town meeting, our chief is retiring. His last day of work is tomorrow, our police chief. So as part of his contract, he has sick leave buyback, personal days, and vacation days that are unused that we have to pay out. The sum of that is about $58,000. At this time, we're putting $25,000 in the budget. They're a 24/7 operation, and we'll review that again for the spring. The increase in technology expense and the decrease to town clerk expense really offset each other. The town clerk purchased a laptop. Those purchases are generally made out of the IT budget, so we want to keep them as such. So we pay that, so we're just decreasing her line item and putting it into IT budget to have a centralized IT. Increase in insurance, employee benefits, and the Douglas Public Schools. Again, we had the 50,000. We look at any new revenue as a 70-30 split after fixed cost. So we took into account the increase in students in Norfolk Aggie, and then we kind of put 70% of new revenue to the public schools, and we took, the town side has 30%.
Okay.
As part of that whole calculation, we did review other line items, decrease in selectmen wages. Again, Mike Kaczynski has left and Matt came, so there was some difference in salary calculation there. A decrease hiring wages. We did have a vacancy because our mechanic resigned, and we had a vacancy there.
But we are filling, aren't we?
We are, but there's some savings because we didn't fill it right away. And decrease in assessors reval. Again, the budget, the contract came in lower than we had budgeted.
The increase in the insurance employee benefits, is that because of the new, is it the beginning of the school year, the school determines how much insurance? How many
I
plans
still
and that
don't
stuff?
have a good census yet. I'll probably know after the next billing.
Okay.
This was just some money put towards that article. Again, we budget based on the March census.
Yeah,
prior to the fiscal year, and 5 family. But we did have 14 new hires. I will look at the census. Again, this is one article, one budget we will be reviewing for the spring.
Just a simple question. Is there the chief's sick leave, is there a timetable on it? Is it, in the contract, is it supposed to be paid immediately upon him leaving
He
or
will
within 30 days?
He
or-
will be receiving his final check as well as this check on October 17th, I believe is the paycheck date.
Okay, so with his final check, it is received with his final check, okay.
Pretty sure that's the date of payroll. Tomorrow ends the pay week, and he gets paid the following Tuesday.
Oh,
Well, we all do. We all get paid the following Tuesday.
okay.
The library expense, you mentioned last time, but it slipped my mind.
The $512, that was because he had to meet a minimum appropriation.
That's right.
Percentage.
Yeah, so he needed $512. I was gonna round it to $520, but it was gonna cause him some problems, that's why it's $512.
Now, does this,
Be precise.
does this take into account, they were selling stuff at Oktoberfest, right? That money went to the library, right?
I
Am I correct?
believe it goes to the
Friends
Friends
of the Library.
Friends of the Library,
The
which is a
town
charitable
needs to
organization.
appropriate a certain percentage of the overall library budget for books. And it's a
Okay.
set percentage.
Oh, okay.
And this is probably
Yeah.
building that amount up so it's that set percentage.
Okay.
I think I saw on Facebook they made $78 on that sale, so I
Cool.
don't think we have to worry too much about getting too rich on
I
it.
feel bad asking such a small amount. So do we not calculate it correctly in last spring? Is that what happened? I don't,
I'm fuzzy on the explanation. There's
Okay.
the last 3 years is the look
it's the
back
average,
period.
yeah.
And I think there was, as he added up his figures, a number that wasn't closed out yet, or it was an estimate, and he was.
More than they thought.
He
Okay.
was short.
Does anybody have any other questions on Article 1?
Now, the decrease in selectmen wages was because the selectmen left?
Yes, no, a senior
No, it's actually-
administrator.
No,
Select-
Mike
yeah.
was,
Yep.
had been with you for a while, so
Mhm.
my starting
Higher
salary
salary.
will be lower than his. Plus, there
Oh.
was a period of time when you only had Jim
Wasn't-
Purcell, part-time,
Mhm.
so there was savings there as well. And the highway is a
Oh.
similar situation. That position is a
So
PM
it's
5.
actually, I'm
You're
sorry.
not even
I
making-
thought it was like
No.
the selectmen budget.
Includes the town administrator
Okay.
and the assistant.
Got it.
Yeah, selectmen don't get paid that much money.
They got their pay cut, they got their pay cut now, the selectmen, 0 to 0.
Yeah, right.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, do they?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple $100.
All right.
selectmen do.
Okay.
Finance committee, no. Sorry, that's how we.
Next year's
I'm good.
budget,
I'm
next
good.
year's
No,
budget.
no. It's not worth it.
Any other questions on Article 1? In that case, I'd be looking for a motion to recommend Article 1 for town meeting.
I'll move that the finance committee recommend Article 1 to town meeting,
Seconded.
Motion made by Pam.
as written in the motions.
Motion made by Pam, seconded by Eric. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 2, transfer from free cash to OPEB. Does everyone have an understanding? Jean went over it quickly. Do we want to review that further, or are we?
This was remaining health insurance money.
This is the HRA that closed out. We have a high deductible HSA plan now.
Okay.
I'll move that the finance committee recommend Article 2, as written in the motions.
Right?
I'll second it.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh, my word. It's getting late.
How many figures are home for that?
Motion made by Pam, seconded by Carol. Any further discussions or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll move that the finance committee recommend Article 3,
Article 3 for
as
those,
written.
watching is
defibrillators.
projects. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Pam, seconded by Eric. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
No prior year bills.
At this time, we have no prior year bills.
Okay, that's Article 4, for those watching at home. No
So
prior
that will
year's
be-
bill. So-
That will be passed over. Is that the term, Jane?
No, if, if can we keep it open in case we have our 6:30 meeting? I don't anticipate any, but you just never know. If not, the vendors will wait till May. I'm pretty certain that we would have been notified by now. If not, they deserve to really wait till May.
Okay,
Yeah, so your recommendation would be that we'll pass over this article, or that whoever's supposed to be, do you know who the presenters are yet? Or have the selectmen raised their hand?
That'll be Tuesday.
Okay.
am I presenting Article 1? Is that what we typically do?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think,
Not
I
at
think
the- not at
that's
the,
an annual, I think.
Just the annual?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's the annual.
Okay,
Would you want to?
not particularly. Just want to know if I should prepare for it. Okay, so do we need to make a motion to pass over Article 4? Or... As former chairman, I'm looking for some...
I think that we won't have any recommendation. If it's passed over, I think I'll move that the finance committee have no recommendation for Article 4.
That sounds good.
Okay, that sounds great. Motion by Pam, I need a second.
I'll second that.
Carol gets it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous?
I'll move that we that we recommend Article 5 and Article 6 as presented in the warrant.
Okay.
Seconded.
Are you comfortable with these, Howard? I know you were here the last meeting. Would you like a little, no? Okay,
We've seen these for a while.
okay. Motion on Article 5 and 6 made by Pam, seconded by Eric. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. All right, our friend to Article 7. My first question is, I guess, what does the committee think? Do we need to make a recommendation, or do we think this article is financial in nature?
Article 7? Yeah. I think I'd rather wait until, I think I'd postpone our recommendation to town meeting night and make it at town meeting. I think at our meeting, we should review any late developments. If they're gonna be talking to Rich Bowen, if something should come up, I think I'd rather wait.
And the rest of the committee agrees with Pam that it is financial in nature?
No. Oh, that it is financial in nature?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's potentially at any rate,
Okay.
Sure.
you know?
And Howard feels that we should vote tonight, correct?
Well, Pam can make a motion to pass over.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we postpone
Okay,
voting on this until the night of town meeting, which is the 7th? 6th of November.
okay, so Pam has made a motion to pass over, I'm sorry, postpone, not pass over, scratch that. Postpone Article 7 until the night of the 6th. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Carol has seconded. Any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Nay.
So that's four in favor, and Howard is against.
And that's just in favor of,
Yep. Yep.
continuing it. I would have voted tonight.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Moving on, Article 8. Do you guys have any more information on what the funding is gonna be used for?
So, kind of expressing a certain amount of indifference. I'm not entirely convinced that the town's decision makers fully support all the work that has been done to this point or sees the value in it. What I'm do feel comfortable asking for is, this basically would be for the Worcester Business Development Corporation, about 1 month's worth of billings, you know, a small number of hours. And I'd like to still have some resources in the toolkit, starting out on this project. I'm gonna push back, but they invoiced, or they quoted to us as $2,100 to quote-unquote focus on the economic development potential of town-owned properties. I'm gonna push-
Town-owned properties?
Town-owned property. I'm gonna
That's
push-
key.
I'm gonna push back on that because I've been staring at the map of the town and I don't see the value in town-owned properties.
Right.
What I have asked these guys for and what I see value in is a market range study, or getting us to a point where we can obtain the data for a market range study. Market range study is simple. It's what are the businesses within a certain circumference that will compete with us if we develop property in a certain direction. That's valuable from the economic development toolkit, because then we can go to potential investors and say, we've identified a clear opportunity, whether it's on town-owned property or private-owned land, but we want to be of assistance in it. You saw a map tonight with the Gilboa Street property with my personal opinion is probably the best economic development potential in town. There's a lot across the street. And I'd like to be able to go to the ownership structure there and say, look, the town's willing to try to work with you in the process and expediting the process. By the way, we have a study from WBDC that says, you know, if you locate certain types of businesses here, you have a better chance of success. And if we have that conversation, we can start the wheels turning around all the permits that may be necessary to run certain types of businesses in that locale. That, to me, is economic development the way it should be done. And not
Presenting
just-
value to a owner of a property as well.
Right, and not just random studies of a piece of property out in the East Chippewa somewhere that you have to build a 5-mile road to get to. That's not viable. So that's why I'm asking for the indulgence of the town and through you guys, and I'll be asking for it at town meeting. Just a little bit of money to try to kickstart this thing. There's a lot more to this. One issue is revitalizing and sort of re-engaging the EDC here in town, and, you know, trying to get support behind specific initiatives that are gonna have real value in the near term. But we all know, diversification of revenue has gotta be a priority for the town. And is this gonna be worth it? I think $2,100 is worth it. I would never ask for 25,000. You know?
I move to approve Article 8.
I'd like to have some discussion first. First of all, it's the first time I've been in a meeting where you and I have both been here as you've been town manager. Welcome. I can tell you from my perspective, you could have asked for 20 times this amount, and I would have approved it. That was one of the reasons I was on the hiring committee, and one of the reasons I thought you were a good fit to come into the town. I've been here now on this committee, this is my third rotation. All I've heard is the WBDC. I haven't seen any real, and I work up in Worcester, so I'm familiar with WBDC. I haven't seen anything really concrete to come out of it yet, with all respect to the 2100, and I appreciate it'll at least let you get your feet wet. Again, I would look to have you quickly follow it up, looking for more, or find if that 2100 doesn't get you the follow-up that you were looking for, to quickly look for an alternative. But yeah, I mean, this is what the town, and Pam's point, development on town land, I don't even know what that means. So, you know, the Gilboa, you know, right there, but sure.
Maybe a water park.
Well, it's unbelievable. So I just want to have the discussion quickly. Welcome. It's your first request of this kind to this board. I can't even imagine telling you, no, we want to encourage you to use your best judgment and try to help the town with its economic development. I think most of us feel that's an important step in this town's growth and its ability to work its way out of any budget issues it has. So that's just my pitch to
I agree with
lobby you
Howard.
guys in favor of voting in favor of what you might have been ready to vote in favor of anyway.
I would have approved a higher amount as well with Howard, because I think it is,
I'd rather build credibility one step at a time
Right,
here.
well.
Just make sure we don't risk too much.
Yeah.
There's elbow grease here that's, you're already paying for in terms of our salaries, that I think we need to motivate in the right direction.
100% agree with Howard's sentiments. Just one other thing, sort of related, that I just want to bring up. I've always been concerned a little bit with the grant writing in town, that it's always, I feel like the way the federal government and the state government now works is instead of giving towns and cities and states money to do what they want with, they break it into all these little projects and you have to beg for it. And we do some grant writing in town, but I've always concerned it's probably, you know, the 8th or 9th job requirement of all the different employees in town. So I've always been interested in trying to find some sort of creative way to get somebody, and when Mike was here, I suggested, is there any way we could, you know, do some sort of compensation plan where for every new grant they get, the person gets whatever, X% or something along the line, and we never really could quite get the mechanics on how we would do that. But at least from my point of view, that's something here the town is lacking a little bit, and I'm not sure how we go about. We have gotten some grants, and I think the town employees do a great job of trying to fit that in, but I would like to see somebody who's a little more maybe experienced and focused, and, you know, maybe some part-time parent who did that and now is, you know, has some daycare responsibilities. I don't know, but just some way to try to get a little more focus on that type of.
Yeah, there's certainly opportunities. I mean, the first thing I'd like to see us do is actually implement the grants we've already won.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a $30,000 grant to upgrade this building from Cat 3 wire, which might as well be flying kites with that stuff, to Cat 6.
Yeah.
So just getting that through to implementation. Then there's the sustainable, what do they call it now? It's the compact.
Green?
Community
Oh,
compact.
great, yeah.
Is it
And there
green
are-
communities?
That's
Some
something
of the
different.
tickets have been punched, but there are some other things that we need to accomplish to unleash a pretty significant grant.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see those things
Okay.
get done.
Sure.
Some of the other, you're right, a lot of grant funds are targeted. So we keep getting this, is site preparedness invitation from Massachusetts.
Economic development.
It's an economic development initiative, and I'm gonna forget the exact name of it, just another reminder came through today. But the point for site preparedness is it has to be pad ready, and we don't really have those opportunities yet to market. So there's definitely groundwork that needs to be laid before those can be pursued. But also, Maya has highly targeted grants in the private sector to us, or basically we're a member,
Yep.
get some of our money back. I put it out to department heads a couple of times now. They're highly targeted.
Right.
So that, you know, we might get a forestry management grant, for instance, to keep access into the forest. A lot of it's geared towards planning. I don't know everybody's appetite towards planning. Sometimes it's helpful, but really we want operational funds that'll help
Right.
us get something done.
well, you did economic development in Socket, right, for 16 years. Do you still have contacts that would be helpful in determining economic development in this area that maybe the Woonsocket wasn't ready to do, or they weren't willing to do, but you still have those relationships with those people that you might be able to bring those ties in to help the town out?
The thought has crossed my mind to poach, because I know where they were. Within the boundaries of the Highland Corporate Park, there were firms that could no longer expand because they had built out the envelope and the lots they owned.
Right.
But I've got to give them something viable
Okay.
that's really been thought through.
Right.
And
Because I know in
while the
Socket-
WBDC initiative over at the gravel pit kind of stalled, not the least of which because all of a sudden gravel became profitable again, and now you've got a concrete company that's located there, and the owners are not gonna sell out an easement to the town until they've really reaped all the value of that land. But if it ever became available, that is exactly the location where I could go to somebody that I'm very familiar with and built trust with over time.
Because when
This is where
pocket
you wanna
taxes
be.
are
You're only
outrageous.
10 minutes away from there, so the same market basket
Right,
that is
exactly.
serving now from
Yeah.
there, and battling the traffic from CVS corporate. I don't know if
Right.
you've ever been
I have,
on Founder's Drive at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30.
my
It takes-
uncle owned a wood
takes my
shop up
niece
there.
an hour to get off of 146 and into her job at CVS. An hour.
Yeah.
So, there's things that we can talk about, but they're down the road. You have to have a
Yep.
real viable proposal.
No, I was just wondering if you still had you still maintained relationships that could have,
Those things are priceless, so we
okay,
keep them going.
great.
Sometimes it's by keeping your mouth shut, which is what I've tried to do.
Right, right.
I love the mayor, she's wonderful.
All right.
I'll be looking for a motion to recommend Article 8 to town meeting.
I made the motion to approve Article 8 as written.
And I will second it or Howard was gonna second it, but I have one more thing.
Okay.
We need to be prepared for people at town meeting to ask the question, where's all that money gone? I haven't seen anything. How come we don't have new businesses coming in? So just be prepared that that's the pushback you're gonna get, looking for more money.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but I can predict it, I think.
So I'll second the motion.
All right, so, motion is made by Eric, seconded by Howard. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Article 9, the zoning bylaw amendment. Do we also believe this is financial in nature? Or do we think we should pass over a recommendation?
I think it's financial in so much as anything you can do to expedite people being able to put businesses here does help.
Or make it easier, make it
Right.
easier for
Sure,
that,
that
for
was well-
a
Right.
good process.
Done.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 9.
Can I have a second?
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Howard, seconded by Carol. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Article 10. So
I
consider,
could make a motion about a crystal ball, or we could postpone our recommendation till that night as well, since we do not have the article or the motion.
Postpone it to the same time as we
can do that.
postpone the other
Yep,
okay.
one with the same issue.
yeah, I think I'll make that motion.
All right, so Pam has made a motion to postpone recommendations on Article 10 to November 6th at 6:30 PM. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Pam, seconded by Eric. Any questions, discussions? All in favor? Aye. Howard? All opposed? Okay. So that's 4 in favor with Howard opposing. Okay. Mark that out. We've got through the first one on our agenda.
God, it's 9 o'clock. I told my husband I'd be home early.
Almost never home early. All right. Number 2, town administrator update. Matt, if you give us update on the most recent Board of Selectmen meetings and a little bit on the meeting with the school committee. I know Eric was there at least. I'm not sure if anyone else was.
Yes, so well, we've been much more brief tonight than we were last time we gave you an update. Eric was there. This is a very important issue to the town, so the less I say, probably the better off I am. Yeah, still want me to speak into the machine, it's an SNL thing. Remember that?
Yeah.
Judge speaking in the machine, with Strom Thurmond. He really did talk like that. I thought the meeting, that the discussion was a constructive one, and that the net result of it was agreement to consider having meetings provided they are structured, that there's an agenda, and the issues are dealt with in an orderly fashion. I think everybody agreed that was true. And I think the feeling is that really should happen. As the budget gets tighter and tighter, the pressure on the management of those line items is very important. The discussion of the school committee's action to add positions or add back positions clarified their thought process considerably, where they were able to come ahead on a couple of funds that may not have been anticipated back at budget time. And I think they also did a very fine job of illustrating or documenting the needs that they were attempting to address. Very large class size at the kindergarten level, and I think it was grade 5, if my memory serves me correctly.
That's right.
But where there still might be additional conversation is, you came out ahead by some not entirely clear number is what you think you came out ahead. So you did budget. You went through a process of how much can we spend of that. There's still probably some more conversation that could occur around that process. But it was clear as an observer, to me, as an observer in that meeting, that they had been very thoughtful and diligent. Where we cannot necessarily predict the exact outcome is the impact through the health insurance account on the town side of those employment decisions. You never really know when you start that conversation whether that person is going to elect a family plan or elect to not take the town insurance at all. And at 14 people times the family premium of 20,000, it's a pretty substantial sum of money that what could have been out there. It doesn't appear that that's the case. So, I think we should look forward to future meetings, and this, you guys have to decide the level of participation. I think that's where Eric stood up and volunteered that you'd be willing to participate in a structured way, right?
Okay. Would the board like to send the Board of Selectmen a letter asking for meetings? Do we want to let it lie kind of where it is and see what comes of it? Do we want to try to move the process of these meetings further forward?
Was there any anticipated future meetings anyways, that?
I don't think they got to the point where they talked about dates,
No.
but I think they agreed on the concept of how it would happen.
So it's not a little reminder item on the bottom of their agendas to set meetings?
I think our agenda for Tuesday includes bringing that back up again.
Yeah, I mean, if they kind of talking about it, I would think it would. I mean, I think I would be interested in participating in a joint meeting.
Okay.
And perhaps we can send, just through Matt, a consensus from the Finance Committee, if we all feel that it would be beneficial, that he could provide that to the board and say, by the way, Finance Committee said they would be interested.
Okay.
I agree with Matt, though. There was a decent amount of clarification, because it seemed to me, initially looking, that they were way too conservative with their budget, and then they ended up with all this extra cash, and through Courtney and yeah.
I didn't get that same feeling.
No.
I wouldn't characterize it like that.
No, I think what Eric's saying is that was the notion that was disabused.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right,
Oh, I
right.
thought that was your,
No,
The
no.
presentation
when I-
clarified that
Oh,
and-
okay.
and ruled
That's
that
what I
out.
was saying. When I first looked at the numbers, I felt they had
Overly concerned.
purposely done it overly conservative,
Okay.
but by
I'm sorry.
listening to the explanation, it cleared it up that was not the case, that the numbers were actually pretty close to where they should have been.
and to me, that's the value of the meetings.
Right.
I would rather, and I did say at this board level, I would rather have the meetings so it clarifies any misunderstanding.
Right.
Not necessarily to solve the problem, I think we're on the solution, we know what the issues are. And then we know that the budgets are tight, but I think just that open line of communication, rather have them explain than you guess or you infer, or,
Keeps everybody on the same page, Jean.
ask
know?
the questions to the appropriate parties so they can give you the answer.
Okay.
I'm sorry I misunderstood you, you made me a little nervous when you.
So
Really?
Would we look for one joint meeting?
I-
One joint meeting in
Um,
January?
watching the meeting, I kind of got the sense it would be more than, would be quarterly or
We
something
talked
Yeah,
like that.
about quarterly, I think,
quarterly.
before, and then I think,
Chairman offered quarterly, didn't he?
And I believe last time it was brought up, you said before you wanted the meetings to happen, you would like each of us to come up with a list of topics to discuss, and then we could combine them. And so if, you know, the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and us all come up with a group of topics, and we stick to maybe, you know, 5 of them, or we agree on which ones are more important, or if we have similar, I think that would be the best method to do that by. If that makes
Yep,
sense.
no, I would agree with that. Do we want to discuss those at a future meeting? Do we want to discuss, here's, yes, I mean, it is getting late, so. Just thinking through this. My concern is the BOS chair is going to send a letter, hey, we're going to have this meeting, are there any topics? And then I will forward that out to the committee, hey, does anyone have any topics? And I won't necessarily hear anything, so that's kind of my concern. But if everyone feels they will be able to send me some topics if the meeting comes up, we can probably pass it over for tonight and talk about it at a later meeting. What do we think? No? Do you not understand my thought?
I did not understand your.
Okay, so my thought is,
Before, no one's gonna respond with topics to discuss.
Well, what did you suggest tabling tonight?
I did, it's 9:05, we still have a few things on the agenda.
Table the whole topic tonight.
Table the possible agenda items tonight. So I will characterize it this
Well,
way.
that's different than tabling whether to do quarterly meetings. I'm not in
Yeah.
favor of quarterly meetings.
You're not,
No.
okay.
No. We're not an elected
Twice.
board. The other 2 boards are.
Okay,
We're a recommending board. Our priority, to me, appears to be with regard to the budget, which occurs primarily over the course of the winter, January to April, offering us the biggest time where we might have a desire to have input in what the school committee's plans were, the Board of Selectmen's plans were, but the concept that would meet with the Board of Selectmen in May and August and October, along with the school committee, I think is a little overreach.
and I'm gonna disagree, because I think that, I think we've lost some of the ongoing, joint communications that we used to have. It's deteriorated over the past few years. I think we need to set up something more formal. The Finance Committee has been a recommending board not only to town meeting, but to the Board of Selectmen. As an advisory board. And in fact, if you look at some of the finance committees, their names are advisory board. I know the Town of Douglas Finance Committee has acted as an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen, and it has been appreciated in the past. I don't know if it would be now.
Well, Pam, that's probably my issue. My experience in the last couple of years has been that the Finance Committee is seen as maybe perhaps a bunch of gnats who offer opinions that the town, the board doesn't necessarily want too much of. I know we've had 1 or more meetings where it seemed as the Board of Selectmen was really just sitting there they didn't have any agenda, and they heard some things, and then they heard from the people, because they had to hear from the people, and they cut off debate. Thank you very much for coming. And so I tend to believe that the less we be perceived as someone who wants to watch their every move, the more we would maybe be given more credence to our opinions or our input, the less often we were insisting on offering it. Did that come out correctly?
it did. I'm not sure there's
not sure
agreement
whether-
over here.
That's fine.
Before
Yeah,
we go any further, I'd just like to say, let's try to keep the conversation respectful to all members of all boards and kind of keep it.
I was calling myself a nap.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't mean any disrespect. I didn't exactly
mean
mean.
anything disrespectful to
Okay.
anyone there. It's just that, it's my perception that I'd want to be more useful in a shorter manner than,
I mean,
that's all.
I appreciate the fact that I've actually sat on both boards. I was on the
Yeah,
Board of
sure.
Selectmen. And the Board of Selectmen is more of a political board.
Mhm.
They are an elected board, hence makes them political, and they try to please people. Finance Committee, I think, I mean, I've been on the Finance Committee for a number of years and attempting to keep it from being political, and really to act in the best interest of the town. And in that regard, I think that this board, by meeting with the political boards, school committee's political too, I guess you could say, they're elected as well. We bring more of a voice of the people. We're a very diverse group of people here. And we, you know, we just bring kind of a wider look at things rather than a political look.
Okay.
Just my thought.
So, let me just say, I see both sides of the issue. I do think communication could be better between the boards, and I would like to see that happen, but I do kind of agree with Howard that the couple of meetings we have had were not all that productive. And
I agree.
so, that being said, I still think a majority of the board would prefer to meet with the two committees. And I think we should let the Board of Selectmen chair just decide how often they would like to have us, and I think we should come when invited and see how it goes. And if they continue to be unproductive, then I think we can.
We maybe pitch, they would meet up to 4 times if they thought that was welcome, but would like to meet at least a minimum of 1 or 2.
Yeah,
And in that light, could I suggest that maybe we have a meeting and invite the school committee to come to a meeting, and then, you know, we can attempt to work with, have a joint agenda.
sure. I'm happy to do that, long as people want to contribute what we want to speak about and what we want to talk about, that sort of thing. All right, so I think we should continue our consensus through Matt that we would love to get together when so desired. I
Well,
do-
not love maybe, but
we would like to get together when so desired,
We're willing to do it.
or willing to do it, and see where it goes from there. While the chairman did say quarterly, these things tend to kind of drift, and I would actually be surprised if we met quarterly, especially in the summer, but if we did, that would be fine too, so. So I think
Can
we've
you convey
cleared.
that?
I think so. I think you're in deep light. Warming up to deep light. No, I mean, there's data that comes out in the summertime that's actually very helpful to know. So, yeah. So what I
I mean,
wrote down is up to
September
4,
would be
if
good.
helpful, 1 or 2 at a minimum. And there is a consensus that they certainly want to get together.
Yep.
Okay.
And as far as agenda items, I think I'm gonna table that part of it for tonight. I would just ask if this thing moves quickly and all of a sudden I say, hey, what do you guys wanna talk about? I do get some feedback back as to what you'd like to see on the agenda.
we won't leave you hanging.
The only issue I would have with that, and I know it's late, is the first time we did it that way, again, historically in my short term, it seems as though there's been almost no agenda
Right.
coming from the other side. And so I'd want to, if we were going to pitch agenda items,
Yeah, I would
have an
prefer,
understanding of kind of a consensus
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
agenda.
I would
That's
prefer-
what I was saying, the board
Build
would
around it.
give their idea of topics, we would give our idea of topics, and the
Yeah,
school committee would
yeah,
give,
yeah.
and then we would whittle those topics
Maybe
down
we'd
to them.
each give our 3 favorites.
Right, exactly.
And if it only turned out to be 4 total.
Right, exactly.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That would be.
I think that's really necessary.
yeah, no, and that would be my
Yeah.
proposal, to
Okay.
get some from each of the 3 committees to do.
Yeah, rather than just us pitching a bunch of stuff.
Right.
And the board sitting there going, okay, are they done yet? I'm still being polite. I know.
You did have a familiar look, Howard, though, I gotta tell you.
All right, we're gonna be respectful and we're gonna move along and now, I'm embarrassed to admit, I can't remember, did we approve the reserve fund transfer? We did, correct? Okay.
I haven't received them back yet, so if they can
Oh.
ship back
Do you
here.
want me to fill in the date of the meeting?
Oh,
and-
yeah.
The money has gone out already. I
Okay,
mean,
so we have that, we have approved that, so that's off the agenda.
no expenditures.
That was it, only one reserve fund
That was the
transfer?
only reserve fund transfer. Yes, this is kind of a standing meeting. To review the expenditure vouchers. Jean, walk me through this. I haven't exactly approved this yet, do I?
Well, that's the payroll one. The expenditure vouchers would be after Eric submits
Okay.
his conference fee and you sign it the following meeting, you have to bring it before the committee and,
Okay.
and say that you've approved that.
All right, so
And we'll get a
Did you get the
postage
email?
one, or not postage,
I don't know.
printing.
Oh, I thought you went to check when you left the room earlier.
No, I think I was just
Oh,
going to
okay.
get my keys.
all right, moving on to approval of minutes. These are the April 11 minutes. I went through the public hearing and the vote on recommendations of the budgets. I listened to at least half the meeting or where the areas where there was some question as to what happened. I did add in there when when votes were not unanimous, who had voted in the minority, whether that was yay or nay, just because I think that's important for the public to know when these are reviewed. Do we want to take a minute to read through them?
Are these an update from what you've already sent us?
These are an update, yes. I did not send these out this week. We had these the last two times, but the voting on recommendations it was unclear from the video who voted for what, so I was a little more familiar with the voices and was able to do that. So,
Are you going to send them to Mary?
is that what I should do, send them there? Yes.
Well, once they're approved tonight.
Yeah, I will do that. So if you want to take a minute to review those, and then I'd be looking for a motion to review, a motion to approve.
Right, it looks like you've gone through these with a fine tooth comb.
Thank you.
And your salary will be doubled, or maybe we'll
I
give you.
deserve a raise, I will say that.
We'll give you maybe a little something. Thank you.
Pass all this down to Carol to initial.
Okay, that's, yeah. I'll move that we approve the minutes of April 11th, 2017, as written.
I second that.
Okay. Motion made by Pam, second by Howard. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three.
Yeah,
Okay. So you're gonna abstain?
I'm gonna abstain, yeah.
Okay. Carol, you're okay approving the
Oh, yes,
minutes?
yes.
Okay, so that's unanimous with
Yes.
4 in favor with 1 abstention by Eric. So in your packet are the June 20th meeting minutes, which I did send out this
Yep.
morning and had gone out the last couple times.
Yep. I make a motion to approve the June 20th meetings, minutes.
Just one correction on the reorganization, number 4. It says Mr. Hogan can only be chair for 1 year. I'm pretty sure what I said is I only have 1 year left on my current term, and my future with the committee was unclear. Just,
okay.
so I'd just like to make that amendment to the meeting minutes. So if someone would like to,
I'll make a motion to approve the June 20th
I
minutes.
think it's already been made. I think it'd be seconding. I think Howard did.
someone's gonna make it as amended,
Oh, okay.
I'll make the motion to approve them as amended.
okay?
Second.
So the June 20th minutes, motion made by Howard, seconded by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, well, this gets us sort of caught up. We don't have the minutes from the last meeting yet, but we are on our way. Any old business?
probably, but I can't remember what it is right now.
Perfect. I have one thing on new business, future meetings. So I'm still a little unclear on what this board wants to do. I know we're gonna meet for 30 minutes before a special town meeting.
And that-
Originally, we had planned to meet twice or at least once in November, on the second Tuesday of November.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get a sense, my Tuesday mornings have been scrambling to make sure we have a quorum here. So I'm happy to organize a meeting if that's what we want to do, but with the attendance, I'm wondering if maybe we should then, after town meeting, we should call it good till maybe December, or early January, when we're ready for budget time. But I'm looking for input from the board.
There's nothing we have to go over, why have a meeting?
Back in June, there was some discussion about we would have topics
Right.
that we wanted to discuss. We had the gentleman for the Worcester retirement last time to go over that. If there's other stuff people want to meet on, I'm happy to do that. I just
Well, could some of those
don't want to spend my Tuesday.
economic issues come to fruition by November, so we might have somebody who could speak to us about that by November, or is that too soon for
Oh.
those
That's,
things to develop?
that's likely too soon.
Yeah. That's too
Let me ask you, I
Yeah.
guess for me, I found that, and I know December's brutal to try and put together a meeting. Maybe the sooner the better, if we were going to do one, but I've always found that as we hit the time crunch in January and head forward, it's useful to have kind of a primer before we get started of what our goals are, what our plans are, what we expect to see, what we'd like for our agenda, even if it's a short meeting, to bring ourselves up to speed. Maybe we'd have discussions by then as to when we might have a joint meeting with the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. So I'm not opposed to a short meeting, let's say the first Tuesday in December, something like that, and it's 7 out by quarter of 8.
That would be December 5th.
Yeah.
Well, that actually, first of,
Yeah.
is but the audit may be doing their exit conference that night, and that would be a great meeting for the finance committee to attend. But the first, you meet in the first, don't you?
Yeah,
The
we would
first and
probably be
third.
aiming for the second and fourth Tuesdays.
Oh.
'Cause
The 12th.
yeah,
So
the
12th.
selectmen,
Okay.
but
So we're looking for the
I
12th?
think that would be fine. You know, we could definitely also get prepared for budget season, get the calendar rolling on that.
Yeah.
So the 12th?
Yeah, if that works. I know we're a ways out and it's hard to say, but
So we're scheduled for another meeting in 2 weeks, the 24th of October.
We're scheduled for one, the 24th
I
of
thought,
October?
No.
are we doing them every
We're
2 weeks?
to make a motion to cancel that meeting.
Yeah.
we are, but I'm trying to get the sense. So in
Okay.
June, the board seemed pretty.
You were talking about November, and so I
Well,
didn't
okay,
know.
the October one as well. I was
In
just,
June, we were all high from the anticipation of summer.
yeah,
You
so we
know,
were.
sure, Ryan, whatever you want.
But it's come, I plan these meetings and then I spend my Tuesday morning frantically contacting people to make sure we have
It's a
five.
problem because
five
we don't
people.
have a full contingent.
So you may
And-
want to recalibrate, is
Yeah,
what.
yeah, and now Keith, I saw, he mentioned the other night, he thought he had some prospective candidates and is working to try to get us a full quorum, which would clearly help
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
A full committee, not a full quorum. But
So are we still planning on meeting on the 24th of October?
I would say no unless there's something people would
Okay,
like to.
so do you want, all right, and,
And what the town meeting is, when
so
is
do
the
you want
town
to,
meeting?
the town
Town
meeting
meeting
is the 6th.
Okay.
Do you want to meet the 14th? Are we meeting once as a finance committee in November?
What is the committee's pleasure? Do we want to meet
Howard's going,
after
no.
special town meeting? to
Okay,
review?
and again, I'm gonna revert back to a while ago.
Yep.
And I'm gonna say, in the past, way past, there was some discussion with the town administrator as to what his intent and, you know, the finance director's intent would be to give direction to the employees as far as budgetary. In other words, are you going to be asking them for a budget submittal that, you know, includes all of their wishes? Or are you gonna say, guess what, same as last year, don't give me anything unless it's an emergency? Or, you know, I mean, that type of thing. And I think the finance committee, I personally would like to know how that's going out. I think Mike used to do a budget letter or some sort of a letter to the employees.
And that typically went out in December.
Yes.
The message to the the departments,
Right.
and we requested that the budgets be submitted beginning of January.
Yep.
Again, part of the problem is starting the process too early, because you don't have the big numbers yet.
Yep.
We're talking
What big numbers
to
are we waiting for, Jean?
health insurance. I mean, that's, you know, we won't have our
EBT.
renewal rates until, and they're
Good.
pushing us to the end of January, and they want us to go in February, and we're saying, no, we need them in January. The governor's numbers aren't out. You know, so, you know, sometimes starting the process too early, you tend to spin the wheels. I don't have a problem talking about process and about message and things of that nature. I think I'd love to see the finance committee at the exit conference for the audit. They give some great information, or listen to it after, I guess. The capital request, the capital improvement received their message, and that goes out, again, at the same time in December.
So the audit is on December 5th, is that correct?
The exit conference.
Exit conference for the audit is on December
So
5th.
It's typically scheduled the first meeting of December for the Board of Selectmen
Okay.
meeting.
So,
What's that mean, exit conference?
They come
They
in
finish.
and they review the audit with the Board of
okay,
Selectmen,
okay.
point out any findings they have, go through the financials with the board.
Did we change, or do we have the same company this year?
We have Melanson and Heath, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Melanson Heath is our auditor firm.
so I would propose we schedule a meeting for December, we cancel everything up to December 12th. That way we can talk about the audit,
Other
Okay.
than the.
other than
October.
Other than November 6th,
And
I'm
what
sorry.
time,
6:30.
November 6th or at 6:30 before special town meeting.
okay, but are we gonna meet before that?
I thought we said October 10th.
That's today.
I'm
That's
sorry,
today.
never mind.
Okay, that's okay.
Yep.
All right, so the next time I'll see all of you people will be on November 6th at 6:30.
At the high school.
At the high school.
Right.
We have our room, we'll get a
We
room
will.
again, okay?
We will get-
So
Thank you.
6:30 will be early enough? There's not
I
a,
didn't mean it like that, but we used to meet in the auditorium, it was Mass Chaos.
oh, yeah, it's too loud, couldn't hear.
Yes. And then we will,
November
then
6th,
after that,
6:30.
you all have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you all again on December 12th.
Okay, that sounds
Right.
good.
Thanksgiving is after November 6th.
Correct.
Correct.
Halloween is before.
No, Ryan was, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna, I'm gonna see you on November 6th, then we're all gonna have a
Then
happy,
Oh,
Thanksgiving, and
You're
then-
weighing out the.
Then-
yes,
then we're gonna meet on
calendar.
December 12th, okay? Well, that'll be our
Happy
game
Halloween,
plan.
too, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
So would we
Come
be
see my
able
neighborhood.
to
It's
get
a big party.
the warrant information on 7, was it 7 and 10?
That's right.
If there were any changes emailed to us before November 6th?
That'd be good.
So that would be prepped for 6:30.
Thank you.
To already have hopefully seen it,
Be
and then
fantastic.
just be doing quick votes.
Yep.
If there's anything new, if there are any changes.
I mean, I again would like to, I'd like the finance committee to start with, we've been at the last minute, and I'd like to you need to back in. You need to look at when the town meeting date is, and then back in and get all those people so that you've got time to talk to them all, if we're gonna talk to them all. If we're not, that's a decision we can make.
Can we do that on December 12th? Start to really plan our agenda?
Need to, yeah.
Okay.
That's important, because last year you chose only to talk to the bigger departments.
Yeah.
That was a choice.
Yeah.
It was a choice because there was no time. Because things got backed up big time.
Yeah,
And we get storms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
felt
got
like the
storms
last couple of
too.
years,
Yeah.
things were already in our lap
That's what
in
nailed
us.
January and February, and we were reacting. I'd rather have one prep to see what our thoughts and plans are going forward.
we can
And
give
kind
some-
of get, for me, get a sense of where the budget, the board, the town, the school committee are headed, to the extent we know a little more. You know, each year, to me, there's this question of the school, what we've got, what we don't have, and it seems to me, whether it's the school committee meeting or the Board of Selectmen meeting, some magical place that only comes to us after the fact. There's a recognition of whether we're in good shape or not in good shape. I'd like to see a little bit of that as it develops.
And I would too, not that there's really,
I don't need to
not
be in all
much you
their
can
meetings.
do about it,
No,
but,
I don't need to be in all their meetings.
Nope.
Offering my own little input.
Yeah.
But it'd be useful to, even if it's just us with a consensus with Ryan, like you said, from June 20, you know, getting us meeting minutes.
Yep.
And then we sit in a meeting on December 12 and talk about highlights of what has already transpired and how we want to be prepared for in the January season.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much, part of the reason it's all kind of is information comes in, I mean, that's kind of the
Yeah,
way the
sure.
process, we're getting information from
Yeah.
other people, so.
Well, it's the
but as much as
lateness
can-
of the revenues, I mean, as Gene said, too,
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Hey, listen, I'd
The
love the
audit
cherry
report.
sheet in November.
Yeah, there you go.
I would
You
love
know,
it, but I
yeah.
can't have it.
Got it.
Okay, so our next meeting will be November 6th at 6:30 at the
To
high school.
adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, Gene. I know, Gene.
All right, motion to adjourn made by Pam, seconded by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you very much for coming. Have a good night.